this lady is not exactly what people expect in terms of the manner in which she presents herself or the way she really is. This I've found true of a lot of people who have been extraordinarily pleasing surprises to me as I've gotten involved in a combination of freedom efforts and working with extraterrestrial intelligence, among other things. Tanaath is heavily involved in some of the same things I am. And without further ado, I'll let her add anything that she might want to that. Tanaath?
What do you mean I'm not as I present myself? I hope that's a positive thing.
Of course. I'm not going to get myself in the ring today.
All right. Yes, I'm structure of the Silver Legion, which is a non-physically based. We were formerly purely spirit realm based organization, but now we also have dimensional side of things as well, as we have a planet of our own that is 4th, 5th, and 6th dimensional. Yes, it is a split planet, a considerable space fleet, including some very, very large permanent space station type, biosphere type ships. So yes, we're our mandate is primarily to attempt to make things better here on Earth in any way we can, and that includes coordinating with other friendly species of extraterrestrials and spirit beings alike. That also includes attempting, where possible, to intervene on behalf of humanity. One of them is make sure that there are no nasty accidents with fissile materials, such as and other things that give people nightmares. And one of the things that we also like to do is try to prevent, where we can, incidents that are inflammatory. Now, we're not always successful with that. We're not involved with everything. Some of these false flags we just aren't involved in or didn't see or didn't catch. Things happen. That's not necessarily our fault. We do what we can to stop what we can, and we do it to make things better for you. What we're not here to do is tell you how to live your lives, tell you what's right or wrong, what to believe in. That's your business, that's your job, that's not our responsibility, and we don't want to do it. So how's that for... Hey, Drake?
Say that last part again.
How's that?
Say that last couple part again. I missed it.
How is that for an introduction?
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool. I mean, I was not, to be honest with you, I'm not really sure exactly how to go about some things, and I have yet to find a lady that can find herself lacking for words, for one thing, let alone being able to introduce themselves. As I said, Taz and I have been working together for a while, and the thing that makes me wonder most is how all of this can fit together. That was one of the things that I was really wondering about a lot. I think you probably remember me asking that question over and over again until I got 20 varieties of answers, and then I guess I picked one. But that's a good introduction.
Yeah, and the question of how do we actually get to the nitty-gritty of coordinating and contributing, that's always one that causes a lot of problems for everyone. How? How do we get involved? How do we do stuff? That is, follow your heart with the intention of helping, and a way will open itself and make itself clear to you sooner or later. One of the things I want to talk about a little bit today is good guys and bad guys and how to tell the difference between them. Because I see a lot of things on the internet claiming that so-and-so is a good guy, so-and-so is here to help us out, this group here isn't, and some of them are giving conflicting indicators as to, okay, this group says that group's not friendly, that group says it's friendly, and the other group isn't. You know, how do you tell which is which? Well, first off the bat, keep in mind that there is a great disinformation, lies, and attempts to control the dialogue and control the discourse involved. So automatically all information is suspect. Don't start from the notion that everything is truth. Start from the notion that everything is potentially an attempt to deceive, and then narrow it down from there, or eliminate the ones that are not problematic. And one of the ways I do that is by looking at what they say. Now, it's one thing to say a whole bunch of lightisms and trigger words. We've got trigger words that have been speech, whether or not that is or isn't the case. We automatically start thinking everything is okay the moment somebody mentions angels, the moment somebody mentions light, love, ascension. Any of those things are truths. They're not necessarily only spoken by good guys. That's the thing. Sometimes bad guys can use those concepts to try to get you all of things that are not nice. What I'm telling you to look for is not the love and light trigger words, but the underlying messages. And what is it empowering or is it disempowering? Is being taken care of for you, or does it place a reasonable expectation upon yourself to improve yourself? And I'm not telling you improve yourself or you won't. It's also disempowering speech. I'm telling you things like, okay, it's up to you to decide. It's up to you to decide how you're going to organize your communities. It's up to you to decide items and have value, what items do not have value, how to run an economic system with or without currency, etc. If they're talking chosen for you, if they're talking about leaders that they have chosen for you, even if they're calling themselves an archangel, or even if they're calling themselves a Syrian or a Pleiadian or anything like that, that is disempowering speech. Nobody is ever talking in your best interest if they're choosing things for you without giving you for yourself and decide for yourself. Right, Drake?
I would go even further than that, basically. To me, I'm kind of a skeptic about a lot of things anyway. So the thing that I look at is that not even when somebody is telling me what to do. I don't look at that even as much as whatever it is that I'm being told, be it information or whatever, that we have a life here, such as it is. And I look at that life and I say, well, how does this compare to what they're talking about? Now, this gets into the airy-fairy, golden age, whoopity-doo kind of thing that a lot of people will hear a lot of places. And this is not necessarily what I see as a, quote, reality. I look at the life I've got here, and I know that there's limitations, things I don't agree with that go on. But even more than that, there's always seems to be something to do, whether you're retired, disabled, whatever it might be. There's always seems to be some form of struggle, and by that I mean that can be something an individual's experiencing, or society is experiencing, or a group of people might be experiencing. There always seems to be some kind of effort needing to be made, instead of the idea of, wow, man, I can sit under the apple tree for the rest of my days kind of stuff. When you hear the you don't have to do anything routine, that to me is the trigger that keys things, that shows that what I'm hearing may not be exactly what the reality is going to be. That's my take on it. How's that?
Oh yeah, any assumption, any assumption that we're going to be sitting around on our duffs, eating fruit falling from trees without ever having to lift a finger for the rest of our lives, kind of quote-unquote paradise, is just unrealistic, and it's not going to happen. one of the things I have noticed in working with people in spirit realms and in higher dimension, working closely with them, is that they're people. They have likes and dislikes. They do stuff. Everybody works, but what is considered work and what is considered work of value are not the same as what we consider work or of value. Down here, we're very much controlled by an economic system, one that we are currently seeking to change, thanks to the efforts of such as Neil Keenan. But we have a valuation system which places that which produces money. So the only thing that is considered to be work is something that can get you great compensation. For instance, if you spend your entire day gardening, unless that can bring in an income, it is not considered working, even though it involves actual work. If you spend your entire day, this is similarly devalued. This is not the case among the positives. And yes, there are positives and there are negatives. And there are people in between who just don't give a darn. And not all negatives are evil, but they usually have more resources and involve more selfishness than positives, who tend to have methods of doing things that produce resources and are collaborative and cooperative. And neutrals are somewhere in between, much like current Terrans, and I will call us Terrans rather because most of the universe is human. Believe it or not, not all of them are nice. Some of them are. Some of them look just like us. Some of them look like our idea of really, really nice people, all blonde-haired and blue-eyed and rotten to the core. So don't trust appearances either. Looking like a vision from a vision of loveliness straight out of the Aryan Jesus, a good person. Appearances can deceive, and the evil ones can be just as beautiful as the lovely ones. And yes, it does something, but it's not oppressive. They do things that are in line with their likes and their dislikes. If somebody really, really likes to make art, this is considered productive. If somebody really likes to take care of children, if somebody really, really likes to serve on a ship and get involved in things like peacekeeping and making things better for others, this is considered productive. To sort of think of an idea of some of our allies use 20 hours on and 10 hours off, and this isn't oppressive. They only need about 2 hours of sleep, so most of that time is free time, and even the 10 hours on is not heavy labor. It's as soon as you're needed for your duty, you get to work. Yeah, it's funny that you should play the Age of Aquarius, because that reminds me of something else I wanted to say, and that is the tendency of people to look at signs and portents and things that were left in the past as proof of the future, or as proof of things coming to pass as predicted. And one of the things that people need to remember, and there's a whole boatload of stuff packaged along with this notion, but it's that just because it came from somebody who is not a Terran does not make it automatically true. Even if it was handed to somebody thousands of years ago and that somebody thought it was God or a special person who made that prediction, does not mean that it is necessarily true and in our best interest. Just because it's been handed down or it exists in the predictions of many peoples doesn't mean it was not planted there. Time travel exists, and certain inimicable groups have been using time travel to plant things in our archaeological record and our lore in order to get certain eyes to pass down our brain pipes. Ideas like December 21st, 2012 will be the end of the world. Well, look, it is the beginning of May, end of April in 2013, and the world has not yet ended, nor will it. You know, that was a meme that was planted by enemy forces. Not necessarily true. We still to feel that anyone who shows up and tells us something is automatically true. I say this isn't the case. You know, you have someone show up out of the blue, maybe in an apparition or a visitation, they say something like, "Oh, the end is nigh." That doesn't necessarily mean the end is nigh. That being could be having a lark. That being could be making fun. That being could be attempting to get you to swallow something that isn't good for you in an effort to make you produce it with your own mind, as they've promised, that you roll over, give up, and let them do what they said they wanted to do. And that's not necessarily in your best interest. Be careful of people who insist on one-sided conversations. Look and see if you're dealing with a non-physical entity, does it reply to you? Does it just talk at you and tell you stuff? Two-way conversation is important. In any relationship, you need to have exchange. Those I work with, they talk. They talk, they answer, there's a two-way conversation. If I don't like what's going on, I can tell them to go away and they will. If I want more information, I'll ask questions and I'll do their best to answer them. There is exchange. And there is no expectation by me that they are always 100% truthful and always with my best interests in mind. There are things I look out for, certain actions and behavior, but it's telling me, okay, look, you have to do it this way, you must, and they're using imperatives. Then I start wondering, okay, is there a reason for this? Can you give me a good explanation that this is the case? Or are you just telling us to be this way? And if they can't give me a good explanation, I cut ties with them, plain and simple. If somebody's telling me, oh, this and this authority sent me, or this and this authority says this, I ask, okay, who is this authority? Because I hate to say it, but there is no authority and saying stuff and issuing edicts and decrees that we are beholden to. We are beholden to ourselves as an authority. We are not beholden to anyone if they call themselves God. They're not God. If they have to call themselves God, they are not God. If we wait around, they are not God. If they require you to worship and obey, they are not God. And I know Drake has talked about this previously in his shows because I've heard about this. God expects you to make your own decisions and live for yourself. He does not expect you to roll over and do whatever he orders because he doesn't issue orders. His order is live according to your free will. I think can probably talk about this too because he studied this quite extensively. Drake.
Yeah, I wanted to know how it works.
And I know that you've discussed.
Well, I wanted to know how it works, so I got involved with things so that I could, quite honestly, not have to take somebody else's word for things. How this is supposed to be, And my first question was always, who was the authority? And that always seems to have worked well in terms of being able to understand what was really going on and some of the things that probably shouldn't have been going on. So that was my take on that. That was the reason.
And a lot of the bad guys using a paradigm of hierarchy and control. And they speak openly about this. They speak about having edicts issued. They speak about they speak about decisions made at the highest level of things concerning us. They speak about, somebody has said, go forth and do this to Terra. Go forth and, quote unquote, fix things. Well, you fixed your cat. Your cat may disagree with the fact that it was broken. Or that was a fix. These are the kinds of things that you got to get. If they're coming from a paradigm of hierarchy and control, no matter what they are claiming, they're probably not coming with your best interest in mind. So how does this differ, for instance, from the Andromeda Council and the Galactic Federation of Planets, who are also coming in trying to help? Well, for one, they have never stated that they're going to do it for us. When they made decisions at the level of the Galactic Federation of Planets and the Andromeda Council, not at the level of, oh, God decreed this. They made decisions at their own level as we're in the territory covered by their treaties. Oh, these people are in trouble and need help. They did not come in, and they are not coming in to tell us how to govern ourselves. They're not coming in to tell us how we must structure our society. They're not coming in to tell us how we have to have an economic system, what we should be using for currency. They may have ideas for us as to things that have worked for other people that they will definitely show us. Okay, well, we've done it this way on IARGA, for instance, or we've done it this way on Tau Ceti, or we've done it this way in Procyon, and this works for us. Here's a whole bunch of different solutions. Feel free to use one of these, modify one of these, combine a bunch, or come up with your own. That's important. The notion of choice, the notion of teaching, the notion of self-governance is really, really huge with these guys. They don't want to have to sit here and rule. They're not interested in ruling. Ruling takes a lot of energy and a lot of time, and usually it causes more problems than it fixes. And one of the things that I encounter with people who are introduced to this concept is, well, how do they keep people from doing bad stuff? Well, the simple thing of the matter is, in a positive society, you have stuff like replicators, you have stuff that is earth-friendly and produces things so that there is no lack basic fundamentals of life. You have a distribution system that permits people to do what they want and do what they love and calls that productive without saying that, oh, you're being a drain on society by doing this. It's open. Nobody really has possessions in terms of ownership of land. They have things that they use and, precious things that have sentimental meaning. For instance, I have some gifts that have been given to me up there, and those are things that are usually beautiful or functional or have sentimental value from the friend that gave it to me. Perhaps they made it with their own hands, and that's a really, really special thing. And I keep those, but I don't own property. I don't have a little patch of land that I call mine and nobody else is permitted on. Nothing like that goes on positive societies. And when you don't have that as a concept, a lot of the things like theft disappears. Nobody locks their doors. They might lock their bedroom door or, put the functional equivalent of a sock on the knob so that nobody walks in on them when they're getting intimate with their spouse. But they don't lock their house. If you were to come to my house on Harmony, because I have a house there even though I don't have property, and when I'm not in it, whoever needs to can use it. If you were to come into my house on Harmony in the night, open the door, walk in, go to my replicator, serve yourself some food, I might wake up, wander out, and say, oh, hey, how you doing? Here, sit down, let's have a drink together and talk. If you admired the piece of art on my wall, I might give it to you, or I might tell you where you can get one similar to it. You wouldn't take it. There's no locks on the door. You can wander in and make yourself at home. The rule of hospitality is very, very expensive. There's no theft. There's no crime. There's no things like that. When it comes to personal crime, these things are settled by the community, not by a legal system. When it comes to laws, the only laws that actually exist govern how societies and organizations and civilizations should deal with each other in an ethical fashion without coming to blows over differences. Not laws governing every little bit about how you should behave as a human being. So that's one thing that people have a hard time wrapping their heads around. Nobody rules. Nobody needs to. We don't need it. Human beings, when left to their own devices, actually tend to be pretty good people. We can always point to, oh, what about this guy? What about the sociopath? What about the rapist? Well, the fact of the matter, that tendency in humanity exists because it was introduced genetically, largely through bloodlines that have been discussed in other situations, bloodlines of hybrid humans and reptilians. That propensity does not generally exist in the human species, at least of the 24 human species that got together to life on Earth and create the current modern Terran human variety. It's a lot in a small town. Anybody who's ever lived in a small town knows what I'm talking about. I grew up in a small town. Nobody locked their doors. Everybody knew their name. If somebody was having trouble, the whole community would get together to help. You know, if you might have had one bad apple in your town, and everybody knew about that bad apple. But for the most part, the people were decent. They helped each other. You know, there might have been drama. There's nothing stopping drama from happening, but it was a community. And this is what we're likely to go back to once the damage that caused by outside to us has been repaired. We're likely to be able to go back to a model like this without requiring laws, without requiring an extensive legal system governing personal behavior, without requiring somebody ruling over us. We don't need that. We don't need rulers. So that's one of the ways that you can tell good guys live lives that are free of rulership. They self-govern. They don't talk about hierarchy. They don't talk about ruling over you. They don't talk about choosing for you. They talk about working with you, which is different. Do either of you have questions about what I've talked about so far?
Oh, we have a lot of questions. I was going to kind of let you guys talk until the top of the hour, but if you want, we can take some questions and just kind of proceed from there if you want to do that. You want to do that?
Talk a little bit about transition.
Okay, most of the questions are directed at you, Tanaath. There were a couple that are directed to either you or Drake and or just Drake. This one in particular is for you. Thank you so much for doing this show, Tanaath. My question is, I believe in the work of Bruce Lipton and Rupert Sheldrake, and I would like to know what your take is on the idea of our thoughts and emotions creating our reality by raising our vibratory frequency.
Raising or lowering, it's a double-edged sword that can work both ways. Yes, what we're talking about is the manifestation in your outside reality of something that you produce or you call to yourself using your inside power, your inside emotional state. Yes, this is definitely a real thing. One of the caveats on that is that on Terra, in the third dimension, it's not always a straightforward process. In higher dimensions, manifestation of thought is far more direct. Down here, manifestation of thought is a lot more stumped. It's slower, for one. Up there, it can be very, very instant. Down here, it can take a long, long time. And there are also a lot of inertia here to overcome and things that are outright working against it. For instance, if you're trying to manifest a lottery win, for example, keep in mind that there's a couple million people who are also attempting to manifest the same lottery win. Well, there's only going to be one winner of the jackpot and then a handful of winners. And at that point, you're not really going to be able to manifest that unless it happens that you're lucky. And it does come down to luck, or if you're extraordinarily powerful. And if you're extraordinarily powerful, well, then there might be internal limitations on what you can do in order to prevent abuse. A lot of us who have a great deal of power have incarnated with specific limitations on us to keep us focused on the task at hand. And winning the lottery is maybe not the task at hand. So yes, that is definitely a real thing. It's something that is a real phenomenon. It doesn't always work as anticipated or expected on this planet.
Okay. Let's see. Next question. How often do you speak to the ETs, and how do you do that? Telepathically?
Yes, and in some other cases differently. And I usually am involved on a daily basis. So that'll give you some idea as to how busy we are. People, as I stated, people like to think that the easy life, airy-fairy, you don't got to do nothing and you can sit under the apple tree stuff is the way things are up there. And there's a lot of people that are in for a rude awakening. That is not the way it is. Dad?
Uh-huh. Yeah, okay. And then that same question would be addressed to Tanaath.
Okay, yes, I'm in contact very close to 24/7. I actually have 2 liaisons who are sectioned off to me, one from the Federation and one from the Silver Legion, and they spirit project down to me here on Terra. So they're walking around almost like a ghost or a spirit, even though they have forms and they can experience themselves as solid and each other as solid. They walk right through walls and through people and objects. They don't really like to interact with electronics or living things because it feels weird for them. I have been told that sitting on my phone feels really, really weird, for instance. But yeah, they're down here, and they use telepathy to speak with me, and they're usually there 24/7, so I'm having conversations with them quite frequently, and sometimes they will have things that they want to say to other people, and I'll say, okay, so-and-so is saying this, and then that person can then reply, and I will relay the conversation as best I can. It's no point of time do they enter my box, so they're distinct from me, and it's much like listening to you on the phone or even listening to you speak in person, shoving yourself down my ear. Listening telepathically does not involve them interacting with my body or my mind in any way. There's no channeling involved. It's strict telepathy. And the way I do it is I hear words. Every individual vocabularies and different tonalities that I hear. It was listening to the radio or having someone speak. It sounds like it's inside my head, is the best way to put it. And if I'm tired or exhausted or really, really, message is distorted, and sometimes they'll say, okay, ground and center, and, ask this later when you're not tied up with the emotionality. If it's a topic that I have a great deal of anxiety over, I may never be able to get a real accurate message because there'll be distortion on my end from that, produced by my anxiety. But on neutral subject matter, it's usually very, very accurate.
Okay. Makes sense. I think our listeners just wanted to be reassured, because Drake has frequently reminded of the dangers of channeling and channeled information, and how it's basically, in most instances, a form of possession.
It is, and that's where the specification that they don't enter my body or my mind comes from.
Mhm. Yeah, and so
letting them
I think
into me.
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion amongst the people in the group about, what is safe information, what is, and how the information is being obtained, so that they can then discern, So thank you very much, both of you, for answering that question. That has explained, a great deal. Okay. Thank you, Tanaath. It's good to hear your voice again. You don't do enough shows.
Yes, thank you. I know.
Okay. This is specifically for Tanaath. How's the pudding? Also about calcified pineal glands. How much does that impair things, such as a visualization in meditation?
It's kind of like a cataract. Cataracts are not an all-or-nothing matter. Cataracts develop slowly over time, to the point where you may not even really notice until you have cataract surgery to remove the cataracts and discover, oh my God, there's colors. or everything is sharp all of a sudden. Calcification is a gradual process, not an instant process. It results in gradual impairment. Things may start to look fuzzy. They might get a little harder to do. Things that were previously very simple may become difficult. You can get to the point, I was almost at this point once myself. You can get to the point where it's almost fully calcified, and maybe you can't do anything. Maybe it's like everything just went away as far as your perspective is. But if you can get rid of the calcification, and here's the good news, it's fully 100% reversible. If you can get rid of the calcification, you can get all that back. It's not permanently destroyed. It's just covered up for a while, like a cataract. You can get rid of it. And the same way you would get rid of it is the same way you would prevent cataracts, for instance, because a cataract is glycation of your lens. Crystallization is caused largely by eating the wrong foods or ingesting the wrong substances. Stay away from things that raise your blood sugar. Stay away from things that lead to calcification in the blood. Stay away from anything that produces those symptoms, and you'll be fine. It's worth looking into the Weston A. Price Foundation and the Paleo Movement for ideas on how to eat in such a way that you are not provoking inflammation, which is the same state that provokes calcification. There are people who discuss things like juicing, raw juicing. Those things are good, enzymes from raw plants.
Question was directed at both you and Drake, and that was apart from scattered updates. We haven't heard much of anything from Tolek or John Kettler in a while. Are they okay, or are they just very busy with current situations and unable to focus on anything else?
I can't speak for John Kettler, but I know Tolek is very, very busy. I also know Tolek has stated that he's not going to give too much more updates until it comes time to give what we might call, for him, the ultimate update, that, hey, they're here and they're on their way to come say hello. Now appearing at a park near you. Because they're most likely to use public spaces in parks. They don't believe in private property.
All right. With all the craziness that's been going on around, how close do you guys believe that we are to both the clearing up of the cabal situation and the visitations from individuals from groups such as the Silver Legion or the Andromeda Council?
Okay, I want you to envision something for a moment. Imagine that you are tunneling through rock. At some point you're going to bust through and you're going to be into a chamber of something awesome, right? Maybe you're tunneling to a treasure chamber. Maybe you're tunneling to a paradise. I don't know, but you're tunneling through rock. The problem is you don't know exactly where that line's going to be, but you can tell by the sound of your pick on the rock that you're getting close. That's what we're at. We're not going to know we're there until we come busting through.
That's a very good analogy.
That's really the situation that we're in. Putting a date or a time on this, I am not going to do this. I'm sorry. Timelines are not appropriate. I would say in a general sense sometime between now and 2016, but I could be wrong. Things happen, all is fair in love and war, and it's a war out there. That, and one thing I've noticed about the higher dimensionals and the spirit entities is they really don't have the same grasp of time that we do. They might say, oh, it's a couple of weeks, and it's actually a couple of days or a couple of months. They just don't have the same grasp of time that we do. And that may be because our 3D time is different. It runs differently than theirs does.
Next, if we are not able to reach a real proficient ability in astral projection, can we still be a part of the Legion's Lightworkers' efforts? I am trying my very best to master projection, but I cannot force the issue. The pace is driven by my abilities. It is what it is at this point in time. They're wanting to know if they can still be a part of the Legion's and Lightworkers' efforts.
Yes, you can. That's not the only way to become involved. One very, very positive thing that anyone can do is learn how to ground yourself, center yourself, and connect with the light of the universe and shine your own light. Doing that part of the day, even if it's just 10 minutes at a time, 5 minutes at a time, even if it's every other day, you do that, not only will you be calmer and more serene and more able to roll with the punches and way more zen in your own life, but you are contributing an immense amount to helping not only yourself but everyone around you, including planet Earth. So that's one thing that every single person can do. Now, if you want to be involved specifically with the Silver Legion, the reason why I suggest astral travel is because it's something you can do consciously in which you typically have full remembrance of the experience when you finish it, or at least enough remembrance. Because we don't tend to believe something unless we have full remembrance of the experience. For instance, you might get very, very intoxicated and have a blackout and get told the next day, yeah, you did this and that and the other thing, and you'll be like, I did not. For the same reason, I suggest astral travel. Because you have the memories, it won't be a blackout. But I don't actually astral travel. I actually use a form of conscious bilocation, and when I sleep, I do sleep work. And I have long ago learned that it's better for me to just trust that my dim recollections are in the morning, that these dim recollections are accurate, because more than once I've been like, okay, that couldn't have really happened. And then somebody will come along and say, hey, Tanaath, do you remember? And then whatever. And I'd be like, oh, my God, okay, yeah, that was real. Okay, I'm not doubting myself anymore, because that doesn't solve anything. Doesn't contribute. It doesn't make it easier to handle any of this. Trust yourself. That's the big thing. Trust yourself. Trust your perceptions. Trust your feelings about what you did or did not do. That's going to be more accurate than not trusting, than saying, oh, God, that could never have happened, right? Even if it's wacky, even if it seems completely weird, yeah, it could have still happened.
Okay.
You know, dreamed you got it on with a pretty alien. Well, it might actually happen. It does happen.
It does happen, huh? Can astral travel be an issue if you don't know how to do so proficiently?
You know, there are plenty of resources on the web, including forums and other crowdsource areas that are dedicated to this. The old work of Robert Monroe is particularly useful. Look this stuff up. I'm not able to do it personally. I use sleep work and conscious bilocation, which, by the way, I am completely blind when I do it, so sometimes I fumble around like an idiot. I'm not the best person to tell you how to do it. There's stuff out there. Go forth, figure out what works for you. What works for somebody else might not work for you. But the beautiful thing about the internet is that you can crowdsource. Somebody out there might have had your problem, fixed it, and done it in a way that will also work for you. Find those people, but just be aware of the things that try to paint things as too rosy, or get your guard down so that you're not so that you're not taking care of yourself and you're not cautious. Once again, like I said before, just because it's a spirit, just because it's a dimensional, does not make it your friend. Don't just trust what somebody says and take them at their word just because they're not physically human down here on this planet. It's very caveat emptor. Take care of yourselves, people. Don't be stupid just because they're a spirit.
Okay, if someone is, does the Silver Legion still need strictly human volunteers to help with the process? And if so, how would they be considered?
Depends on what you mean by volunteers and what to do. Right now, we don't have much that we can do in the physical world with you. We can't land. We can't manifest next to you. As much as we'd love to crash your backyard party with a keg, we physically are unable at this point.
Oh, come on.
I know, I want to. I would really, really love to have, say, for instance, Captain Grimm rolling a keg down my backyard party. That would be going from backyard party to backyard awesome in a moment. But yeah, unfortunately at this moment we don't have the means by which to do this. Not many do have the means by which to do this, and most of them aren't going to crash your party. The ones that do have the means to do this are probably not out there to be nice. So be careful.
Okay.
As for how you can help, well, one of the things you can do is not specific to Silver Legion involvement, but again, the grounding, centering, light yourself up like a little Christmas tree or a street lamp and shine. You know, make the world around you a better place little bit by little bit. The other thing you can do is get involved in your sleep, in your dreams, astral project if you are able to do so, and just go to sleep intending to find us and get involved, and you should be able to. I can't be the arbiter of your experiences. I can't tell you if you succeeded or not. I can't tell you if you met so-and-so, if that was a real experience, if you wake up saying, oh, man, I met Merlin. I can't be the one to tell you that because I don't have the bandwidth to bring in all of the information relating to everybody's personal experiences. The Silver Legion is well over 50,000 members right now. I can't be the arbiter of everybody's personal experiences. All I can do is tell you that if you feel this happened, it happened.
This one is for you, Tanaath. King Solomon in the Bible, might he have astral projected? He referred to the silver cord, etc.
Yeah, that sounds like a fairly typical astral projection experience.
It says, initially Drake mentioned that we ascend with Mother Earth, and then last week he mentioned that we leave Mother Earth on ships, which I had been told was the deception by the reptilians. Can you please clarify?
Yes. From what I have been told, what I've been able to find out, those people who decide not to go into 4D, who wish to stay in the 3D realm, they like where they're at, they like the way things go, or for some other reason they don't feel that they can go, they will be provided for. Those who decide to go can, I guess, get the lawn chair out and watch the fireworks. Does that work with you,
yes.
Kath?
Yeah, if you want to stay three-dimensional in your current incarnated body, you had probably better get off the planet because you will be four-dimensional in your current self if you stay.
People talk about confusion. That ought to be confusing.
Yes. That's what it comes down to.
Well, you think about it.
If you want to stay third-dimensional, you don't want to be on this planet when that happens because you will automatically become fourth-dimensional. If you want to become fourth-dimensional, all you got to do is stay put. Well, it's a choice. It's a choice. It's always a choice. But for whatever reason, there are people who don't want to stop being their 3D selves as they currently are.
All right.
And it's perfectly fine. I want everybody to understand there ain't no right and wrong answers to that.
Yes, just because somebody is higher dimensional doesn't mean that they're better.
Whatever you're comfortable with, what you want to do. Now, it's going to be exciting. It's kind of like the first time you ever rode a roller coaster in terms of the exhilaration you're going to feel. That I guarantee. But other than that, there'll be changes. And personally, I hope my video camera works because I want to get the video.
And that brings me to something else I want to talk about the ascension process. Ascension is one of these trigger words that's thrown around by the New Age and spiritual community all the time. It's got all this stuff packaged along with it, all these concepts and trigger words and stuff. There's a few things I want to talk about here. For one, it's a process. The actual moment where your body becomes fourth dimensional is instantaneous. But leading up to it, the mental and physical, even the mental and psychological changes before and after are a process. They're not instantaneous. Reorganizing society is a process. Understanding how technology works in different dimensions is a process. These are not instantaneous things. you will not have to have anyone else ascend you. Nobody who wants to become fourth dimensional is going to be denied this. You don't need to get into an ascension chamber to do it. You don't need to get on a ship to do it. You don't need to take a medicine or have someone activate your D or play with a rock to do this. It will happen automatically. No one can take that away from you as long as you're here on this planet.
Well, I plan to be on the deck sitting in a lawn chair drinking a beer, and as long as it don't mess up my beer, we're in good shape.
I have reason to believe that they drink beer in the fourth dimension.
Hope so.
Or maybe something even better.
Yes, they have a lot of different things. Alcohol has slightly different effects up there. For one thing, not everybody appears to be able to get completely smashed drunk in the fourth and fifth dimensions, which may or may not be a good thing.
Well,
disappoint some people.
And my best guess is that the beer and everything in the fourth dimension is not going to be GMO created, correct?
Oh, definitely not. Why would we need GMOs? We have, the whole thing that GMO is being sold to us. It's being sold to us to be resistant to pests, resistant to disease, to grow in conditions that are less than ideal, and to have a higher yield so that it can field more people. None of those things are factors in the higher dimensions. Now, we all know, or most of us who've done any research on GM knows that in addition to all of these things they're supposed to do, it messes with living organisms horribly and may not even achieve what it... Well, yeah, it turns it into poison and may not even achieve what it is supposed to do. So, no, there aren't pests capable of wiping out a crop, for instance.
So, in other words, we're going to get Mother Earth and everybody on it is going to get a flea bath. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. You don't have to worry about deleterious diseases, at least not ones, Some can be created by bad guys and let loose, but guess what? Anything that can be created can also be combated. You're not going to have to worry about yield because once you have the base organism, when you scan it into the replicator, well, anybody can have as many of it as they want. So you can feed the entire world with one loaf of bread. Although I wouldn't recommend bread because wheat just ain't good for you. Sorry about it. It's not. Doesn't matter if it's whole grain. Doesn't matter if it's, einkorn or emmer. It's still not good for you. Go read Wheat Belly.
Yeah.
But you can feed an entire crowd or an entire planet with one loaf of bread and a fish if you really wanted to. Just scan it into the replicator and give everybody the replicator recipe and make it out directly.
It makes the cookouts a lot easier.
Oh, yeah, it does make stuff a lot easier. And when you have replicators, and most positive societies have replicators, personal ownership of stuff, clothes, when my grocery store, my liaison comes with me, and he follows around with wide eyes saying, "Look at the stuff ever." They're just absolutely floored by the likes of Walmart and Safeway because they don't do anything. It's all in the replicator. Those rows of clothes, and they think, "Oh my goodness, think of the logistics required to supply enough of everything to everyone and have it all the right sizes for everyone with their unique bodies." They just look at it all and say, "Oh my God, there's tons of waste inherent in the system," and they're floored by it because they use replicators.
Well, we don't have the technology to compensate, and, at least we know we're good at something.
Absolutely.
Replicators have Philips in 3D by Earth, by Terrans on Earth, and they work. They're just not widely released, and the technology has not been made publicly available because certain people have a vested interest in keeping you going to Walmart and spending your dollar on stuff that poisons you and falls apart quickly.
Interesting.
The whole supply chain thing.
They would like to know your opinion, Tanaath, of Sheldon Niddle and the Galactic Federation of Light.
The Galactic Federation of Light is out and out a reptoid front that is operating through channel only on this planet, but on a few other human 3D planets as an attempt to soft take over or soften up option for enslavement ahead of time.
Okay. And they also had asked earlier.
They talk openly about how they've been, ordered by quote unquote the God that's ordered them is the reptoid God, the thing they worship, which isn't real God. It's not source.
Okay. They had also questioned a few of the other cast of characters, might I say. We're getting constant, comments and everything from different sources, of such, they want your opinion, or like pro or con of people such as Poof. Poof was one of them.
Okay, let's think for one at a time here. Yeah, Poof.
Yeah.
Look at his message. Poof's message is pretty empowering. Poof doesn't talk about done for you. He talks about stuff that's happening, yes, but he doesn't talk about stuff that's being done for you. Poof encourages you to think for yourself. Poof encourages you to investigate. I've got no problems with Poof. I don't know who Poof is, but I got no problems with his basic premise.
Okay. Another one is Cobra.
Cobra?
Cobra, we were hearing a lot from Cobra, and not so much anymore.
Yeah, Cobra, I don't really like Cobra. Cobra likes to talk a lot about the Galactic Confederation and the Galactic Federation of Light, and he is not involved with the Galactic Federation of Planets. Now, he's tried to say that there's no difference between the Galactic Federation of Light and the Galactic Federation of Planets. The Galactic Federation of Planets claims that there's a difference. If one party is saying, no, there's no difference, and one party is saying there is a difference, there is a difference. The ones who are trying to pass themselves off as good guys are the only ones who benefit from the notion that there isn't a difference. And if there's a group that's trying visibly to distance themselves from the other group, there's a difference. Sorry,
Correct.
Cobra is not affiliated with the Galactic Federation of Planets.
Okay.
Not in any way, shape, or form.
Okay. Dolores Cannon is another one.
Now, Dolores Cannon is one who makes use of a lot of channeled material, right?
Okay, she's not with a particular organization per se, correct?
No. I don't really know much about Dolores Cannon and her stuff other than she's using a lot of channeled things. And again, when it comes to channeled stuff, just because it's coming from a spirit doesn't mean it's true.
Correct.
And once again, the Galactic Federation of Planets and the Andromeda Council and the Silver Legion and a lot of the Liberation Forces specifically out tunneling. So it's very much Cator. You might get a positive who's coming through channeling, but it's not one that's working with any of us.
Let's see. Privacy for R&R in nature in my own space is something I would miss. Why would privacy be taken away?
Okay, who said anything about privacy being taken away?
I don't know.
I want to know where this whole question comes from. It's like, maybe this person can clarify, because privacy still exists. People are far more social and communal, but we also have private time. I've got on my ship, I've got private quarters. Mind you, I don't use them physically with this body, but the part of me that lives up there does. I spend time in nature alone. I go on retreats. It's still possible. Just because private property does not exist does not mean that privacy does. And I'll talk a little bit about mental privacy and telepathy. It is fairly common to what other people around you are feeling. Empathy is a very common trait. So you that are really, really happy by more than just their body language and their expression and their tone of voice. You can also feel their emotions. Some people have more talent at this than abilities and talents. And everybody is capable of telepathy there. Telepathy is different from mind reading. When I talk about telepathy, I'm talking about how you can, who speaks a completely different language and still be able to understand each other without just, speaking really loudly and flailing about and pointing at stuff, right? You have perfect understanding of each other just in your own language. It's telepathy. We have two parts of our mind when it comes to used to having a mind that nobody else can. Here, don't draw a distinction down here, a public mind and a private mind. Things that you think in the public mind are kind of like talking out loud. Anybody who's telepathic can hear it. Things that you think in the private mind are yours. It is a gross violation of ethics to try to break into that mind without first having your agreement and permission and whatnot. I talk with my liaisons in my public mind. I do a lot of things like reading, listening to music. I do that in my public mind. So my liaison will be sitting there and he'll be enjoying my book with me because it's in my public mind and he can't. I want something private. You will learn how to feel the difference. I'm sure the transition is going to be very, very hilarious because there'll be a whole bunch of us who are not trained in how to use the public and the private mind all of a sudden leaking their thoughts everywhere. This is a thing. It's considered new, and everybody's going to learn how to fix it.
Tanaath, are you a human? Are you a human, we assume, from this planet in reference to hybrids? I witnessed someone who was very cruel and had a type of a seizure and appeared to then have a second set of eyes, kind of light gray and layered looking. What is your best guess about the potential bloodline of this particular being?
I have no idea. I don't know any four-eyed people. Did you ask if I'm human? Yeah,
well, it says that they're assuming that you are human.
I have.
And from this planet.
Yes, I am physically a human on this. Lived many lives in many dimensions, many of which were human. That the flavor of my soul is dragon, and I know fantasy creature. No, they exist. They exist, and much as there are many different species of human out there, there are many different species of dragon. My work, we eat rocks, not princesses.
Okay.
But I am not familiar with the four-eyed species.
Let's see. It is so good hearing your voice again, Tanaath. We have missed you very much. You and the Silver Legion are truly our hope of the future. When will the grid around the Earth be completely removed, and how is that affecting our consciousness?
We're making strides in this. There's a whole bunch of different grids going on. I know I've mentioned this before. Everybody talks about the grid. Well, there's a different grid for just about everything under the sun. Some of them are natural, some of them aren't. Some of them are friendly, some of them are hostile. Some of them are natural and have been turned to unnatural uses. Honestly, when it comes to when is the grid going to be removed, I can tell you I don't know, because I don't know which grid's which anymore, and I'm not directly involved right now with efforts against the grid.
How is the war in outer space against the negative entities? And are there still lots of them, or will it be completely removed in a month or so?
Whoa, completely removed in a month or so? Okay, there is a little thing in the universe called balance that is extremely necessary for the day-to-day functioning of the universe as a system as a whole. Negatives will always exist. Positives will always exist. We're not having waves everywhere. What's been happening here is that the local balance has been tipped towards the negative side, and we're working as a function to correct this. Grown the same sort of natural functions would arise to put us in check. Fortunately, when positives get overgrown, it takes a lot for positives to get overgrown, because positives and neutral can exist and coexist in balance much more than. As it pertains to local space, I don't know if it's going to be a couple thousand years. Terra will be eventually freed. The negative influence removed from the beings on this planet can do whatever they want, invaded from hostile forces from elsewhere, and things that we can't really combat easily. That when, I don't know. Again, we've got the mining pick going in progress, but we don't know when we're going to bust on through. Now, the war against all negatives everywhere? Never. Because destroy this universe and kill ourselves. I don't really want to do that. I believe in balance. Balance exists. It's necessary. The object of the game is not to wipe out the enemy. The object of the game is to correct the imbalances.
Okay, let's proceed to the next question. Can you give us an update, Tanaath, on the Silver Legion as far as the force, the ships, and the new recruits? I understand there is a new group called the Q, the letter Q, that recently joined you, or joined forces with you.
I'd like to mention. Yeah, there are positive in Star Trek. Sometimes do exist. In fact, Star Trek is heavily based on the truth. And I'm talking about, J.J. Abrams came and decided he wanted to kill the Vulcans, which is another, there's a reason behind that, and I'm not going to go into that. Beings similar to the Q as presented in Star Trek are involved, and they're on our side.
Okay.
I'd be interested in how this person heard this, because this isn't something that gets advertised.
Okay.
Mostly because people have a real hard time understanding exactly the QR and what their limitations are, because they do indeed have limitations, particularly operating in lower dimensions. They have to give up some of their unlimited existence in order.
Okay, we're just breaking up terrible. I'm going to give you yet another opportunity, Todd. You sent me a message in Skype that you were going to try to reconnect again, and I'm going to pose a question to Drake, if you would please. I'm so sorry, honey. I wish this were something that were within our control.
Yeah, well, that's called fan club. And you knew that I expect them to be active for several reasons. One of the things that Tath was trying to express was the fact that these things that some of the things mentioned are not widely known, and we're kind of curious as to how the information got out.
Okay.
Other than that, that's everything else is okay.
Okay, let me see if I got a question for you, Drake. People keep saying that there is something very real, something real special with the Irish people, and no one seems to say what it is. Mr. Neil Keenan is obviously Irish, and he is paving the road to our freedom. Is that what is being referred to, or are the Irish simply pure humans?
All right, that's a loaded question, first of all. I would suggest that anybody that's curious about the Irish heritage, Ireland in general, go back and look at the history as much as possible. You'll find a pretty extraordinary history or historical background that a lot of people are not aware of. Now, that means that you go into the official part, you learn about it, etc. Then you get into the part that is part legend, rumor, myth. Some of it is even fairy tales. But if you look at it all, and quite quite simply go through it, you'll find that the majority of things that people would like to think not only don't apply, but there's a lot more to it than you know. Okay?
Okay. And Tanaath, I do believe you're back yet again, I hope.
Yes.
Fingers. Oh, thank you. Well, it sounds good so far.
And I sincerely apologize. It's a limitation of what I use to communicate, and I don't have an alternative at this time. And I'd just like to make a sort of a comment on this question about, are the Irish somehow pure human or really, really special? Every single human society out there is really special in some way. We all want to think of whatever our pet group is as being somehow more special than the others. But the truth of the matter is we're all special. And that doesn't diminish the specialness of anyone. Nobody's got a monopoly on the truth. And when it comes to pure human, there really isn't any pure humans running around. There's been so much interbreeding and stuff going on. And even then, hybrids are not always a bad thing. I know quite a few other dragons who really, really, really like the humans, and the resulting offspring are often very, very special. Just because it's a hybrid doesn't mean it's evil. It depends on what went into it and for what purpose. If we're talking about, naturally conceived or created offspring as a product of love, then it's not a bad thing. If we're talking something cooked up in a lab as part of a soft takeover, then it's not a good thing.
Okay, will the upliftment or change in dimension happen within this lifetime or within my lifetime? I'm currently 20 years old. I am not looking particularly for a date like Tolek does, like, say January 2014, but it would be great to know that I have something to look forward to.
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
Okay. Next question is for Drake or Tanaath. How many biospheres are here to help the people of Earth, and will we get to visit on these different biospheres?
Well, once it's possible for fourth dimensionals to physically manifest and land in the third dimensionals, visitation may be possible in certain circumstances. As to how many biospheres there are, I don't have that data. I think the Andromeda Council has something like 12. I'm not sure on the exact number. Other groups also have their own. Some are civilian, some are not. When it comes to any kind of military ship, I am not at liberty to disclose numbers because people can't prepare. People we don't like can't prepare against our fleet adequately if they don't know exactly how many are there. So we don't disclose our fleet size. We don't disclose the fleet size or capacities of our allies either. That is classified information.
Okay.
But yes, there's biospheres up there.
Okay, approximately how many people are here from other planets in incarnate, or whatever, or other star systems, and will we be seeing them, or will they be disclosed soon?
Now there is a loaded question. How many people are here? I don't rightly know. We have different groupings, I guess you can say. We'll start with pure Terrans of Terran origin. Approximately 60% of this planet is made up of pure Terrans of Terran origin. That means that your soul originated, in source, but came via Gaia, Terra, this planet. You're a native to this planet. Your origin is from here if you are a pure Terran origin. Then we have what we can call the naturalized Terrans. And what percentage are naturalized, I don't know. But these are people who've come from other origins before Terra, showed up here, got caught in the reincarnation trap on this planet, and stayed so long they forgot who they were.
Aha. Okay.
Naturalized Terrans. And then we have incarnates. Incarnates are people like myself who came from elsewhere and came for maybe 1 or 2 lives here. Now, I have a caveat. I did my time as a naturalized Terran and got out on my own. I first came about 12,000 years ago, and I got stuck here long enough to forget who I was and what I was and get caught and become a naturalized Terran. I have done this. You know, it doesn't, being a naturalized Terran does not make you a worse person or anything like that. A lot of us are in this situation. Being a native Terran does not make you somehow less than anyone else either. There is a lot to be said for being a native Terran. However, I got out, and I came back deliberately on a mission, and that's what makes me an incarnate now as opposed to a naturalized Terran. I came back specifically on a mission. Now, when you get into the incarnate groups, I can't tell you how many there are. I don't have the percentages. I know it's there's a fairly large chunk. Not everybody's aware. Not everybody who's an incarnate is aware of the fact that they're an incarnate. Not everybody is going to wake up until after transition. Some are waking up to who and what they are and getting into contact with their people. That's okay. Everybody has different mission parameters. Some people are here as part of a Forerunner group. I'm a Forerunner in that I've been awake and aware for 17 years to who and what I am, although the details of why eluded me until, well, much more recently. But if you're an incarnate, trust that you're going to do what you need to. And if you're a naturalized Terran or a native Terran, trust that you're still going to do what you need to and what is appropriate for you and right for your soul and your person. And as numbers and percentages, other than saying 60% of us are probably native Terrans, that's all I can really say about that.
Okay. For Drake or Tanaath, has the Archon shield around Earth been removed, and have all the reptilians been removed?
Which Archon shield is that? Who's talked about this Archon shield? When you talk about stuff like this, I'd like to know the source of the information, because if it was something that Cobra cooked up, then it might not have ever existed in the first place, or what he was calling an Archon shield might have been something completely different. You know, let's pay attention to the source of these notions.
Okay, I have no idea where this quit. I don't even know if this came from
I know you don't,
Facebook
Denise,
page.
but maybe the person who wrote this can elucidate or clarify as to where they got the concept of an Archon shield and who came up with that idea. Because to the best of my knowledge, there is no thing called an Archon shield. Now, there are a bunch of different things with different functionality that act as shields that were put up by different groups, and some of them have been taken away.
Okay.
What was the other part of the question?
Have all the reptilians been removed?
Nope. There's still some running around. There are no more reptilian, to the best of our knowledge, there are no more reptilian-run bases. And before you start saying Dulcie, Dulcie was not reptilian-run. We're making a distinction here between human-run or gray-run or, three-armed people from Venus run. And yes, I'm making that up. There are no three-armed people from Venus. I'm making a distinction between reptilian-run bases and bases belonging to other groups or run by other groups. There are, to the best of our knowledge, no more reptilian-run bases, and a great deal of the shadow government-run bases have been deactivated, again, to the best of my knowledge. The Procyon are responsible for a lot of that.
Okay. Next question is for you, Tanaath. After Earth is uplifted, will you be staying on or moving on to help another planet that's in bondage?
I will be here for a certain period of time, but not indefinitely, because there are others that also need this work. I'm part of the command structure of the Silver Legion, and as such, I need to be where the Silver Legion is active. I can be seconded for a period of time, but not indefinitely.
Okay. All right.
And the Silver Leech is scheduled to go to another planet after this. So when I talk about a period of time, it might be 100 years, it might be a couple hundred, it might be 50. It all depends on what goes on. Parts of the Silver Legion will remain at Terra, acting as defense and acting also as mentors and trainers until Terra is able to field its own defensive force, at which point we might leave an easy transfer so that we can get back if you guys need help, but it'll be up to you.
Okay. Next question is for Drake. Drake, can you tell us what specifically you will be managing once Neil Keenan puts you in charge of something, when everything goes into place?
Yes, I'm going to be basically handling one of the foundations that is funded by the collateral account or accounts, and the idea behind that is that basically we want people we feel we can trust, and I happen to fit that bill. That's basically where that comes from.
Okay. Question for either one of you. Is there something about Rh-negative blood? Normally, without medical assistance, you can have a blue baby when Rh-negative is mixed with Rh blood?
Not to my knowledge.
I really don't know much about Rh-negative blood. I know that a lot of people have posited that it comes from reptilian lineage. I don't know if that's true or not. Sorry, can't help you there.
Okay. What do you know about the executive order signed by Obama, Operation Ring of Fire, which is with nukes and martial law? Secret locations of nuclear weapons supposedly to be detonated across America. The general in the Pentagon has held the covert executive order in his hands. Obama himself has signed this order. This is supposed to happen this Sunday, May 5th. Do either of you have any information on this?
Yes, I do. The basis of things in terms of that particular item is this. It ain't going to happen. It cannot happen. There are a combination of things that are prohibitive to that kind of action. And I'm going to be adamant and say, period. There is no questioning of the capability to make sure that that sort of thing does not go on. You got something to add, Ted?
Just that, well, we don't really like fissionables at all, so we do away with them whenever we can.
Okay. Tanaath, per Tolek, the shift to the fourth dimension will happen by 2014, and you elucidated earlier that it would be by 2016. Can you clarify?
I should expect that the process would be complete by 2016. Now, okay. Tolek, when he's talking about that, he's talking about the point at which your physical 3D body becomes a fine crystalline matter 4D body.
Okay.
Which will be a distinct incident. That's only part of the whole process, though. And it is a process. It's a transition. Just like puberty is a transition. It doesn't happen overnight, you know? It happens as a process. Puberty takes a couple of years. So does this.
Okay.
Tolek has been informed that it will be January 14th. I don't know if, you know, I far be it from me to contradict him. I don't have information on timing. I have my my personal opinions on deadlines and due dates and dates, which I think I've pretty much made clear in other forums, and that's that I think deadlines and due dates are a bunch of horse hockey, as Drake would put it.
Okay. One can tell that the two of you talk. We start rubbing off on each other, huh? Okay. What can either of you say or comment about the Dugway base in Utah?
I don't know anything about it. Maybe Drake does.
Yeah, I would suggest people be less concerned about specific bases such as that particular one, simply because many of the bases that people would look at as being something to be concerned about or curious about, most of that has been decommissioned for starters. The other part is that anything in terms of a majority of the ones that were intended to be adverse to our using up somebody's oxygen have been eliminated. That's something that you need to kind of, put in your pipe, smoke on it, chew on it, however you want to do that. But just to be honest, that's the intel that I have been getting for quite some time. Okay.
Where has the name Galactic Federation of Light and the Galactic Federation of Planets, where did they originate? Why are both of these names being seen as so controversial?
Galactic Federation of Planets. Now, the Galactic Federation of Light, I can say it this. It is based out of Sirius B, or Sirius B. Sirius is a trinary system with 3 suns. Sirius A is populated by a fairly decent neutral group. Sirius B is populated by reptoids that have been genetically engineered to look like a bunch of blonde-haired, blue-eyed humans. And Sirius C has no native population and has recently been settled by friendlies. Sirius B is the origin of the Galactic Federation of Light. They are associated with the Orion Empire and the Orion Conglomerate, and are heavily associated with the Draco and Hydra reptilians because that's their parents. Now, the Galactic Federation of Planets is based out of the Tau Ceti system, Tau Ceti A, actually, because Tau Ceti is also, I think, either binary or trinary. It is based out of the Tau Ceti system, planet Zeta, Xeta, not to be confused with the Zeta Reticulans, Zeta, who are progenitors of the gray species and not nice. Now, the Tau Cetians are human. They tend to be darkly tanned. Mediterranean tan is, I believe, what the literature refers to them as, with pointed ears. They tend to be tall and slender, and generally Terrans consider them to be quite attractive. They are the founders of the Galactic Federation of Planets, which has been around for a minimum of 2 billion years. The Galactic Federation of Light has been around for a couple of thousand. So there we've got 2 big differences. The Galactic Federation of Planets is also affiliated with the Andromeda Council. They're voting members and part of the inner council of that, and they're very long-term, respected members of the Andromeda Council. And the Tau Cetian people don't run the Galactic Federation; they just founded it. The leader leader isn't really the right term because he doesn't rule. The putative head of the Galactic Federation of Planets is a man called Pa'al, who is Tau Cetian. And Tolik also discusses this. I have, not in the flesh, but I have met and spoken with Pa'al. The Silver Legion is now junior members of the Galactic Federation, so we're part of this now too. When we were gifted with the planet Harmony, and this was a gift from the Tau Cetians and the Galactic Federation, we became eligible to join because you have to have a planet to be a member of the Galactic Federation of Planets. Kind of like you have to be a frog to be a member of the Frog Queen's Guard. So once we had a planet, we became eligible for membership, and we became members. And yes, I do interact with Pa'al on a fairly regular basis. But yes, the Galactic Federation of Planets was founded by Tau Cetians. It's definitely not limited to Tau Cetians. And it is currently headed by Pa'al, who is Tau Cetian.
You said earlier that some people have reptilian in them. How did that happen, And is there any way, if we find out that we have reptilian in us, that we can help get rid of it in any way?
Well, for one thing, having genes from something doesn't really make you eat. Now, in the long storied history of humanity on this planet, there has been quite a few visitors from outer space who've come interbred with us, our genes, through hybridization. 26,000 years ago, reptilians first started coming to this planet. They have represented themselves to us as God or gods. They have picked out chosen groups of their own personal slave herds. This was very common in certain portions of the planet that are still very war-torn today. Without namings, some of these beings that we consider to be gods were actually reptoids faking it. They came down. They often made a show of force to counter worshipping them or obeying them. Gathered up some slaves, started taking some, messing with them. Maybe took human men as bed slaves, and in some cases they use genetic manipulation to create hybridized offspring. Over thousands of just a quarter of the planet's population has descended from Genghis Khan, and this is a verifiable fact, and that's, estimated quarter of the population of this planet is descended from Genghis Khan and his Mongols. In the same sort of idea, nearly everybody's got a small bit of reptilian genes in them. Now, let's get to the question of what do we do about it? Do we do anything about it? Well, in short, it may not be necessary. Just because the genes are there doesn't mean that they're hurting you. In some cases, they are. And anything that is deleterious to your health and sanity and safety as a human being will probably be upon the change, at the moment of change. That the wrong DNA will be automatically. Things that are useful, helpful, and a part of you, they'll stay, even if it came from Jack Frost. It doesn't matter what the for you can keep it. If it is deleterious to you, you can get rid of it.
And I always botch this word, Anunnaki, or are they real, and will they be returning to Earth?
The Anunnaki, yes, they're real. The Anunnaki is the Congolese, and I can't remember what part of the galaxy they're based out of. Strography than I am might. But they're a conglomerate of 5 species, 2 species of human, a avian, and a reptilian species, not a different reptilian species. They are neutral. They're not negative. They're neutrals. They were basically tooling around in this sector, found it to go in and, party on and set themselves up as gods. And they did. There was a rebellion, and a population of Terrans overthrew the Anunnaki and kicked their butts off. And they said, we'll be back. And they left a bunch of stuff in rocks all over the place saying, we'll be back. And unfortunately, they are not in any position to be back. Unfortunately for them, very fortunately for us, the Anunnaki are not as big a deal as they make them out to be. Their empire collapsed. They surrendered. There might be Anunnaki coming back to cause trouble, just like there might be Joe Blow coming back to cause trouble. There always seems to be somebody who wants to make problems for Terra. As a group, though, as a force, they're not a threat anymore. So you don't need to worry about, Marduk and the Anunnaki coming back. They're staying where they are.
Okay, good deal. Do Silver Legion members use weapons, or do you work with organic defense in nature?
Both. By organic defense in nature, I'm assuming you are referring, or the speaker is referring to being able to use their own abilities to probably that, as opposed to, say, breeding a hedge that eats people. We do use our own, also use technology and things created through, I guess, what you could call, for lack of a better term, magic to do stuff. So yeah, you have people who throw around energy bolts with their mind, and you have people who prefer to, throw around slugs with a gun, and you have people who like to stab. And for some reason or another, swords remain one of the most popular weapon in higher dimensions in the spirit realms, probably because they're, well, rather to the point. But yeah, we have all sorts.
Okay, to be very clear, Todd, the Galactic Federation of Light is bad news?
Yes. To be very clear, they are. If you look at what they're saying, most stuff is very, very disempowering. I can provide some additional evidence that you can. Let me just pull up I've written this down. The Galactic Federation of Light, the channel bringing in things, speaking on behalf of the Galactic Federation of Light. They use a lot of vapid, crowd-pleasing lightisms with no substances. What they're doing is they're appealing to popularity rather than good sense of reasons. They're also using trigger words that people have been programmed to recognize as good guy speech.
Love and light.
But if you truly deeply read their messages, you will find some very, very disturbing things encoded in there, such as, listen, we're your ascended masters. I don't like anyone calling themselves my master, ascended or not. When they're called on this, they say, oh, we mean that. But if you take out the ascent, you'll get, listen to us, masters. No matter who or what authority they're claiming to be, they're coming in and calling themselves our masters. They're always of us, come take our burden us, and the like. They're talking about putting chosen leaders in power over us, leaders not chosen by us. That's just tyranny in another. They talk about working with special secret societies on Earth, saying, oh, we're working for the best interest. Well, we don't have any guarantee of this. They're working in secret with people deciding who's going to rule over us and what dominic place over us without our consent, without our input. They're just sovereign free threats coming in as the guise of saviors and rescuers. They're trying to enslave us, not save us. Now, I attempted to have contact with Seleucia, telepathic channel. I got what amounted to a canned response, like a form letter. If you send a form letter to or if you send an email to someone, you get a form letter back saying, hello, your name, blah, blah, blah. I'd really like to hear from you. I'm glad. I will talk to you later. You know, it was a very, very, without any real substance. And then I was attacked continuously for 3 days afterwards, until I just said, okay, screw this, and lashed out at the was and stopped it from doing it, and basically go and shut off that connection, and they haven't been able to get at me since. I'm sorry, anybody who presents the face, I'm your friend, Jason. I'm your friend. Proceeds to attack you. That's not a friend. That's not somebody I want to associate with. There's real preventing us from parroting light sentiments in an effort to gain the trust of those in light. You know, this is something that the Hydra reptilians are very, very good at. They're one of the things they're trying to produce is a condition in which you say, oh, yes, Seleucia, I want you to come rescue me. I want to invite you in, so that you give up your sovereignty and let them come in and enslave you. Don't do it. I don't care if it's Sheldon Neidl. I don't care if it's Seleucia. I don't care if it's, the Grand Poobah of Boobski. If it's telling you this kind of stuff, don't do it. If it's asking you to open up and let them in, don't do it. If it's asking you to give over and invite them, don't do it. These guys aren't your friends. They're not here on your side. And, individual channelers, some of them are complicit, some are not. Some honestly think that they're, talking to the right guys and doing the right thing and, are doing everything they can to try to make the world a better place. But I'm sorry, they're friends.
Okay. Next question. Does the Earth have an incarnation the way humans do? And if it does, then why are the rest of the planets in our solar system, why do they seem so lifeless? Do they not have a current incarnation that gives life like Earth, such as trees, oxygen, water? Or is it that their incarnated planetary souls are slowly evolving to give life like Earth?
There is life on just about every planet out there, and just they're inhabited by something. Not all life occurs in water stage. There's methane breathers out there. There's things that don't breathe at all. There's things that if you lower the temperature below 1,000 Celsius, life exists in worms. Now, as to whether or not there exists life as we based organic life on other planets in this system, we've been told, Mars is barren. We've been told, Venus is uninhabitable. Not necessarily. And then we're talking
about... None of us
about
from here have visited, so how would we know? Go ahead.
Keep in mind that some information on that are controlled. I mean, they'll tell you that Tau Ceti, for instance, has a dust screen too heavy on any planets in there, and they've confirmed there's planet owned Tau Ceti A. Then they say, that dust screen is too thick. Any planet there would be bombarded by meteors. There's no way life could exist. Meteor shields? Not that difficult. Maybe we haven't of it yet. Really difficult.
Okay.
Yeah, life exists in many places, and not all in the same dimension. A planet that may be barren in one dimension may be bursting with life in another.
There is credible information coming from an Esther Hicks, also known as Abraham. They appear to connect without channeling and have made a great deal of sense to life. Any thoughts on this person or group?
Haven't encountered them. I'm not familiar with their material, so I really couldn't tell you. I also don't channel. I use telepathy to connect. Okay.
What about you, Drake? Are you familiar with this Esther Hicks, also known as Abraham?
I've only heard vague mention, and I've not heard anything definitive, and I haven't so far found anything positive or negative, so it's kind of up in the air. I personally don't trust things that don't act right in their origin, and that's one of the things that we got going on here. The problem is not so much, let's see here, how can I phrase this, who did what to who, but the manner in which it was done. This is the thing people are not watching out for the way they need to. I don't, I try not to specify that a certain entity or group of entities is evil or whatever. The reason I try not to specify is because a lot of them have been given a bad rap. That does not mean all of them by any means. Now, you take that to the next step further and understand how many, quote, bad guys there are out there. We've got a good example as to, I don't know what you call it, the dinks that we, the sour note on the piano that we got for representation in this day and age is a good example as to good intentions going down the wrong road at full throttle. So you got that type of consideration. And what's funny is some of these people think they're being righteous, okay? Same thing's true in the bad guys. They're being righteous They might oppose your very existence, but they're righteous in their own right. So they have just as much belief in what they're doing as we do. Now, the problem comes when they try to do something with that. That's wherein the seriousness of the majority of the problem lies. Tath has answered a gamut of general questions, but one of these things is that, and anybody that wants to look it up in the Bible can do so, where enemies, nasties, things from the pit or void or the darkness, or however you want to look at that, the bad guys, can appear as an angel of light. They can appear that way to anybody, not just, the average person, but what better way to cause people to get off on the wrong track and follow the wrong prophet? I want you to think about that. You've heard of the false prophet ideology. Well, here you got this prophet, airy-fairy, golden age, whoopity-doo, you sit under the apple tree, okay? Where that came from is obviously not where the reality is. Now, our reality here requires us to do something. I mean, you have to at least have enough functionality to take care of yourself, let alone do other things. Most people work for a living. So, there is efforts involved in a direction. Now, whether you're working for the weekend or the six-pack or being able to buy the wife a dress or take care of the kids or whatever it may be is not exactly what's important. The question is this, and this is what you guys got to understand. The New Agers have taken and created for you your own little rut. This is described, and it's stinky. It's called mendacity. That goes to mundane. That means that you do the same thing, routine, every day, and you go along pumping through life and hoping and praying something will change. I'll give you a little hint. Insanity is defined by doing the same thing and expecting different results. This is why I suggest that not just listening to this show, the presentation of what the reality is, but taking this with a little grain of salt. One of these entities appears. One of these ETs in a spiritual form is going to look like that angel of light. There's qualifications involved. That'll be coming out. We can do it on this show or we can do it later. It doesn't matter. But there is a way that you can tell. And they don't have a choice, which I think is nice. But they will try any means. And I think you've seen politicians squirming, bankers squirming, and others grab the money and run and all this other happy stuff, enough that you understand that you're going to have things appearing absolutely righteous, pure, and of the great creator. Yeah, well, which one? The one that created the darkness, the one that flipped on the switch and turned the light on. There's a big difference in that, but you can stand them side by side and they'll appear. You won't be able to tell the difference. So you have to use the commonsensical approach. First, what do you do in this life? Well, yeah, the burdens and whatnot and the problems will be alleviated to an extent as we go forward. But you're still going to have something to do. And the ideology that everybody else is supposed to take care of certain individuals, that's going to be looked at very, very strongly. Most everybody can do something. So therefore, that will be required of everyone, not just a certain individual. If they have the capability, they usually have some means to do something. I've met people in wheelchairs, veterans that got blown up, and this one guy is a consummate scientist. Nobody will give him a chance because he's in that chair. Okay, the idea that somebody's skin's different, the idea that they look different, the idea of belief systems, all of these prejudices that everybody's had in the past has to come down to this. If I can run a hoe across a row of beans and I can turn around and hand that hoe to somebody else that may not even be as such from this planet and they can follow along, and we can't even talk to each other because of the language barrier? Now, think about this. I ran across this in Vietnam. I ran across this in some of my travels. So I know that if it's available here, the same simplistic, everyday, make sure the toilet don't overflow kind of problems exist in the higher dimensions. Now, I would suggest they probably got a handle on the plumbing. The problems may be a little different, but in the gist of it, keeping this straight so that we do not form pre-existing ideas. These people are working hard. The bad guys in Hollywood are putting out movies showing E.T. as some kind of bloodthirsty monster going to take over and zap you with a ray gun and squish you like a bug and all this other happy whatever. Why do you think they come out with all that? The only positive E.T. movie I ever saw was the movie E.T., and that's the biggest friggin' lie going. The E.T. that they presented in that movie are some of the nastiest things that ever existed, in my considered opinion. I don't know who all might agree or not, but, there it is anyway. I do not give people without knowledge a good chance for survival unless they are willing to at least consider the ideas presented. The understandings they're going to be given involve a combination. This life in comparison to what's coming and the interaction with beings, entities. These are they're related to most of them, but they may look totally different. You may find yourself in a conversation with a squiddy stuck to the ceiling someday. I know that's far out. I want you to think about the positivities of Star Trek. What was that? They didn't have money. Think about it. If there can be a societal structure that does not need a monetary system, then a lot of the grubbing, a lot of the thievery, and a lot of the power schemes, and a lot of the suppression and enslavement goes by the wayside. So you got to get your head around these things in a proper perspective. And this is, to me, this is the main run. This is the main hit the ground, but do so that you keep your balance. And understand, yeah, it's different, but simply just getting the idea so that someone can say, well, maybe it ain't too odd. And what's interesting is that I understand that it is capable of, that the capability of language barriers being taken care of is in there. It's in the works somewhere. I don't remember exactly how that works. Maybe Tanaath could expound on that. But wouldn't it be interesting to ask somebody who's from another star system, hey, man, you got purple plants and pink tomatoes, or what's going on? You think about this. I mean, you actually would get the opportunity to talk to somebody from the stars? Far out. Tanaath?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of things sort of came to mind while you were just... everybody's got different ways of doing things. The beauties of positive civilizations is that we operate with one another on the basis of similarities rather than the highlighting of differences. Differences are viewed as variations that are interesting, sometimes quaint, maybe bizarre to some, but not necessarily outrageously so. Prejudice is based on the notion that difference is bad or that a specific difference is bad. They don't have that sort of idea. Now, there are certain things that they don't tolerate, but that goes more into ethics, and that goes more into harming one another. For instance, they really, really, really don't like it when people abuse children in any fashion because it's abusive. But they don't care. And, here's a good example. There's one planet of humans, relatively close, some of whom are actually our own ancestors. It's one of the 24 planets that contributed genetics to planet Earth, that contributed to the modern human species on planet Earth as it is. But they're called the Androni. The planet is Andron. Now, it is absolutely normal for men to prefer to sleep with men and women to prefer to sleep with women. They still reproduce. They use contracts to handle such things as offspring and limited term relationships. They're nevertheless based in love, but their primary relationships are typically with the same sex. This is definitely not universal, nor is, just as being completely straight isn't universal, being, gay planets are also kind of not universal either. Nobody in the Federation really gives a damn. It's like, oh, it's just the Androni. Oh, they're having, there's guys hitting on guys here. Oh, it's just the Androni. You can do what you like. It's not hurting anyone. Yes, they are coming to Earth. They want to meet their descendants because a lot of us here have some Androni genes. They want to, tell us, okay, yeah, this food came from our planet, that beloved thing, that originated with us. They want to get to know their kids. They're not going to hit on you. Well, they might, but they will take it seriously if you say no, get offended, and they're not going to try to force you, But, yeah, the whole planet's gay. Women, they prefer their own same sex. And the Federation does not try to legislate this. The Federation doesn't decry it as unnatural or an abomination or call them sinners or anything like that. It just understands, that's just Androni for you. They happen to be some of the most fiercest combatants around in terms of fighting reptilians. They tend to be short and very, very, planet is quite high gravity. So you got a whole bunch of little short gay guys who really, really like to kick the reptilians' asses to the curb and back. Yeah, a very good example of how cultural differences are observed and not just tolerated, but considered, well, it's no big deal. That's just the Androni. They don't have the same sort of prejudice. If somebody's society is different, well, if there's parts of that difference that is actually harm generating.
Do we know how long will it take to clean up the air and the water on this planet?
Well, that depends. If we can, if the Allied forces can work openly without getting shot at or anything like that, and can actually physically manifest on the world, then something like that can be cleaned up, working in conjunction with Terran technologies and Terran abilities in relatively short order. And by relatively short order, I mean within months. Just a sec here. I've got to make a decision.
Yeah. Does Inner Earth exist? And if so, is it inhabited by Agarthians or... Yeah, Agarthians?
Okay, there's several different levels of subterranean areas in Earth, some of which are inhabited. Agartha or however you want to say it, exists. They've been represented very differently from reality. Some people would like to have you believe that Shangri-La and Agartha and all these things are all running around being really, really awesome people who really want to help us. In my experience, most of the people who are living underground are not nice.
All right.
But there might be exceptions.
Here's somebody who says, I am still confused about the transition to a fourth dimension and having to get our government and financial situation corrected beforehand. Why? What do the two have to do with each other? I thought that in the fourth dimension there would be no need for government or money.
Okay, these things are not, they're packaged together, but they're not necessarily, they're not necessarily actually related. Freeing humanity from the negative social constructs and the negative controlling factors is a separate thing from transition. Transition will happen regardless. it is better for us to free ourselves before transition than after. It might be easier to free ourselves after, but we're looking at an awful lot of trauma and confusion if that support structure is not in place ahead of time. So that's really what it comes down to. And also, if you have suppression of information regarding transition and the choices that have to be made by each individual, preferably at a conscious level, in which you are actively involved as a thinking part of this, and not just something you choose in your sleep or chose before you. That kind of requires overthrowing the system that is suppressing that information.
And one of the power bases for that is monetary.
Yes.
So this is the reason. These are some of the reasons that Neil and I are proceeding to take down the central banking system that removes the financial power to suppress information, to suppress us, to control us, among a whole bunch of other things to go along with this. And this is the other part that people are probably missing. We have a reset of the government supposedly ready to take place at the same time. So if you reset to a freedom orientation on all levels, that's governmental and financial, then you have a change of power from those who have been causing all the problems to we the people who want a rectification. This gives us the basis for us to acquire a sociological freedom that we haven't had in 200 years. Big difference in terms of what people's concepts of how it works is. Okay?
For the sake of, let's just say, January 14th rolls around and Tulloch's got the date right, and the Andromeda accountants got the date. I'll wake up that morning and everything is different. Now, this event's going to happen regardless. Maybe not on that date. That's another argument at all, and I don't really want to get into the dates. But it's going to happen. Now, we can have that happen where everybody knows what to expect and understands what's going on. Or you can imagine what it would be like if, maybe the 5,000 people who follow the Silver Legion know what's going on. And the 7 billion people on this planet who had no clue are caught. I mean, yes, it would sort itself out eventually, but my goodness, it would be messy. And remove possibility is one thing we'd like to do so that everybody understands what's going on and nobody freaks out.
What do you think of the new movie Sirius that was recently released? Is it disinformation? And is Dr. Greer one of the disinfo or bad guys?
No, I haven't seen it. Now, I understand that I need to watch this movie. I have not yet had time to actually do so. Now, that said, Greer himself is a highly problematic individual. Maybe in the beginning he was motivated by disclosure, but now he appears to be motivated by a profit. Itself makes me distrust his message. But further to that, there's no doubt good information in his movie. Remember to take everything with your discretion. Ask your gut, hey, is this the cat bullshit? Does it feel too good to be true? Does it feel too bad to be true? Are they presenting information that eliminates certain other forms? One of the big problems that I have with Greer's line is that he's sort of presenting that everybody's friendly, and that is simply not the case. You know, the argument that is often made is, well, if they were unfriendly, they would have just taken over. Well, they kind of tried that. It might not have been a bunch of flashy guns in the sky, but they kind of still tried it all the same. And we're successful until we started fighting back. And by we, I don't just mean everybody in space. I mean us down here on the ground. Real human beings, you know. Their takeover method was to try to become us. Very insidious, if you ask me.
Okay. One of the things that he presents in the film is a tiny, like 6-inch tall, what is purported to be an alien corpse, like, or whatever. Would there be any truth to that? Okay.
Actually, that's maybe Fae folk, the wee folk.
Wee folk?
The wee folk.
Okay.
Yeah, there's truth to it. That specific corpse, I don't know, but yeah, there definitely are beings of that size. Some of them have been on this planet.
Okay. Is there a real landing of off-worlders planned for 2013? Is there a plan for a big landing that you know of?
Whose plan? Whose plan? And I'll leave that, as a rhetorical question. Whose plan? Ask yourself that. I know that the Galactic Federation of Light keeps on threatening that they'll come invade. And yes, it is a threat. We aren't letting that happen. I do know that many of our progenitors, the other human races in the local area who are generally positives and who were part of the experiment that started a long, long time ago in contributing genetics material in the form of living people to this planet to live and intermarry and become a new human race. Many of them want to land. Many of them want to get to know their children and their grandchildren and their descendants who are now running around here being Terrans. They want to do that. They want to meet their kids. They want to meet the family, so to speak. En masse, they want to do that too because, if you hear about it on the internet that somebody met an alien, it is hearsay until you meet an alien, and then in your visceral Terran heart, you will understand, okay, this is real. Until you experience it, it's hearsay. My mother grew up in Europe. She thought dinosaurs were just another American myth until she went to a museum and saw the actual skeletons for herself. Until you experience, it's never going to quite hit home. And they understand this. Your relatives understand this. And they want to bring that experience to you, offer you the history that's been kept from you, and offer you the chance to understand what human life is like throughout the galaxy and in other places. Why have they not done that? That's another question. Okay, if they want to do this, why haven't they? Well, there's certain mechanical difficulties involved. For one thing, this is actively being prevented. Because there's people who don't really want you meeting Grandpa.
Okay.
When this particular obstacle is overcome, it will be possible. We would prefer that it happens before the transition. There's some argument as to whether or not it is strictly necessary before the transition.
Okay.
I personally believe that it's a good idea.
Do you know who Ashtar Commander is? And it is said that he is overshadowing Obama. Is this true?
Ashtar Command is overshadowing. Okay, I don't know what they mean by overshadowing Obama. Ashtar of the Ashtar Command existed. The Ashtar no longer exists.
Okay.
They're mercenaries, for lack of a better term. They started out, at least putatively, working with the interests of Terra in mind. I know I've mentioned previously, there's some people who really, really want to help. There's some out there who really, really want to cause trouble. And there's some out there who are just doing it for whatever their own purposes are. Ashtar falls into the latter, the last one of those. Started out putatively working on our behalf and decided somewhere along the lines that they'd rather work for the other side, without getting the permission or telling their incarnate. So we have a real problem there in that we have, people who were born on this planet when Ashtar was working for Terran interests that got sold out with the rest of us when they decided to flip-flop on that.
How are we going to be able to tell when they arrive the good from the bad ETs? Will we know how to tell between the good and the bad ones?
Ask your heart when you meet them. Also, be aware of how they're presenting themselves. The good ones, you might not even be able to tell are ETs until they whip out the replicators and give you something, or, start talking in an ET language or do something completely out of the ordinary. In fact, you'll probably get people saying, "Yeah, hey, I'm from planet wherever. I'm an ET." And you'll be, "Yeah, you're crazy. You go to the loony bin."
Okay.
The other guys.
Oh, go ahead.
The other guys will be doing things like, "Hi, I'm your god. I'm back. Time to worship."
Okay.
Pretty clear difference.
Okay. Next question. Tanaath, in your opinion, who do you believe is really in control of Earth right now? Is it the Rothschilds?
Oh boy, control. Now that is a sticky question. There's a lot of people who are in control of Earth. In control of Earth? I would have to say I don't believe anyone is. I don't believe any one faction or group has full control of this planet right now. I believe that there's people who think they do. believe that there's people who are trying to gain control by any means necessary. There's a lot of faction going on. It's one big mess down here. Nobody's in control. A lot of people are trying. Yeah, it's out of control.
Yeah. Okay. All right, next question. Tolek has said that the people of Procyon have the technology to remove the Galactic Federation of Light if they step past a certain point. What would that point be? And is the Galactic Federation of Light involved in trying to create the one world religion with the Vatican, in short?
Federation of Light would kind of like to take over by any means necessary, and that also includes religious programming. Whether or not they're backing the Vatican or whether they're backing whichever one they think they can push past us, that's up to debate. As for the people of Procyon, are certainly able to eliminate the channeling apparatus. Actually doing so is a bit more difficult. Now, I work with the people of Procyon. One of their guys, his name is Kyla. He appears in some of the UFO literature as well. Yeah, I know him. He's a great guy, big party animal, very flirty, 12 feet tall. Yeah, I'll let you think about that one for a moment. 12 feet tall. I'm not kidding you. At least. Yeah, variant in the liberation effort. Yeah, these guys are real people, and they're real individuals as well. We'll put it that way. You hear the names, it doesn't give you a real concept of the person as an individual. When you hear Paul is the head of the Federation, it doesn't give you a concept of the person as an individual. But they're real people and real individuals too, for that matter. Kyla, I'll talk to him about doing something about the Galactic Federation of Light. When it comes to eliminating the Galactic Federation of Light as a whole, that's a little more difficult, and there's ethical considerations in that as well. because if they're on their planets and they're not hurting anyone else, then there's no reason to do that, right?
Right.
But the moment they start trying to, take over other people, then we take exception to that fact, and we will step in. But there are ethical considerations when you're talking about eliminating an entire group.
Yeah, it sounds very similar to situations that we ourselves are in.
Indeed.
Okay. All right. Let's see. All right. I've got so many windows here. Okay. All week there has been what they are calling a citizen's disclosure in Washington, D.C. And I have been listening in, but I'm very concerned about the people involved. It appears to me that this is the Illuminati or Cabal effort to misinform, or is it that it might be an honest effort to let the people know what's going on?
Well, it's probably a little bit of both. I'm sure there are many involved who are honest. We have a term called astroturfing, pardon me. We've heard of grassroots. Grassroots are citizen-led initiatives that start from the actual people. This is probably intended to be a grassroots thing, but once you get something called astroturfing, that's when you insert strategic individuals into a grassroots organization and you take it over from within and co-opt its mission and its message. That may have happened. I'm really, really not familiar enough with what's actually going on with the Citizens Disclosure Movement to say whether this is or is not a case. I do know that it's pretty much attempted with every single movement that happens that starts to gain a certain amount of momentum. As soon as you get that, you start getting the paid shills. You start getting the astroturf inserted in. Or even just what are often referred to as the useful idiots. And these are people who are programmed in a certain way who are just, set loose to do their thing and patrol the edges of a discourse on their own, whether it is or is not objectively true.
Okay. This is kind of a general question. Who are the major factions, that are at play here?
Okay, are we talking terrestrially? Are we talking ET?
Well, that was a follow-up to the who's in control of the, of right now. Would it be the Rothschilds? That was a follow-up.
And, this is one of the things where, it's hard to say who's in control because who are the factions? Well, not even all the factions know who all the factions are. That's the kind of situation we're dealing with.
Okay.
But you can...
They were saying, like both ETs and planets, like groups here on Terra and White Knight, like White Knights, etc.
Yeah, well, okay, let's see. Of the good guys, we have the Terran-led liberation movement here on Earth. This is a true grassroots sort of endeavor in that you can't really say who's doing it because it sort of springs up everywhere with everyone, including you guys when you talk with your friends and family about things that everybody knows to say something just ain't right. That's part of it. Drake is one of the people who's involved in the more publicly visible of this. David Wilcox involved in this. A lot of you guys are personally involved in it. If you're talking, if you're discussing, if you're getting involved, you're part of this. So that's one faction. We've got the non-terrestrial based good guys or helpers, such as the Galactic Federation of Planets and the Andromeda Council and the Silver Legion. We can be considered a faction as well. We have the neutral extra-dimensionals or extraterrestrials that are doing whatever they want. There are many, many different factions, but you can consider them one group of neutral people causing trouble or helping as they will. Then you have the negative ETs. Again, they're split into factions as well, but as a general group, the ones you're most likely to encounter are the Greys, the Draco Reptoids, the Hydra Reptoids, and maybe some others that, are not highly discussed. On planet Earth, you have, I guess, if you want to consider all of the people who aren't aware of the problem as a faction, you have the Great Sleeping Giant, if you want to call it, the Great Sleeping Giant of Terra, who hasn't yet figured out that the house is on fire and the toilet's on the outside. You have those who are actively working to suppress human freedom on this planet, in the world, and they are a number of factions as well, including what is generally referred to as the Bloodlines, the Cabal, the Illuminati, whatever. They have their own factions within it, but as an agenda are trying to operate with basically one goal in mind, and that's taking over the place.
Okay. One other quick question is, would China and Russia be good or bad? Would they be on our side or against us?
China and Russia in general are for Terran freedom. Now, China, that doesn't mean that they do everything perfectly on their own. I mean, Russia is in contact with positive ETs. And China does have contact to something known as the White Dragon Bloodlines, or the White Dragon Society, which are not the reptilian bloodlines. There are those positive influences involved, but they are not necessarily uniformly perfect either. I wouldn't run off and emigrate to Russia or China.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
And there are certainly flaws in any society.
You may think that this is a crazy question, Tanaath. But have you met
I think I'm a dragon. This thing is crazy to me.
Okay. The question is, have you met our creator? And
What, like as a person? No, Source does not do that. Have I met Source? Yeah. Yeah, I've died. I have been within Source, both as a consequence of my own mistakes and as a deliberate experience. Yes, I have met the creator of everything within this universe. No, that creator does not. Generally, if you're hearing, Jill, it's me, God, that's not God. That's not Source. If you get somebody saying, I am the incarnation of Source, yeah, no, not either.
Okay, so how would you describe who Source is? Is it animal, spiritual, fifth dimension?
Source is everything, man.
Energy?
Source is the conglomeration of everything that exists.
Okay.
And it, in itself, existence has a consciousness, and that consciousness is Source.
Okay, so we are all one at all levels?
Yes, we are, but we're also distinct because only by being distinct can we experience to a full degree. But yes, we are one. We are part of Source. We're all little fractalic fragments of Source. You know, this notion of being made in the image of Source is absolutely because everything that exists is part of Source. It is a little tiny fractalic expression of Source. From the tiniest particle at the Planck length, subatomic, whatever, to the universe as a whole, that is all part of Source. It is all expressions of Source. And as actors within the universe, and I don't mean actors in a movie in that sense, I mean actors as in things which do things, we stop being fully cognizant of our lack of separation from everything in order to act.
Okay.
Source does not act directly, because if Source acts directly, it's no longer Source. It's an actor. It's one of us.
Okay, the one last quick question was, well, how did all the assholes get into the equation?
Well, that's complex. Balance, I've spoken about balance before on this, earlier today. When the universe is in balance, the assholes usually stay contained. It's kind of like, when your body is healthy, you will still have things like yeasts in there that may be not very good, or E. coli that may be not very good, but if you're healthy, it's in balance, it's not causing trouble. The balance gets tipped a little, that yeast starts growing where it's not supposed to, that E. coli starts making you sick, your kidneys start failing, you start dying, and things start going bad. Local balance has been tipped. Now, just as you have an immune system, the universe also has an immune system, and it uses it takes place by beings that become synchronistically aware of the problem and then decide, oh, well, I want to do something about this. It's actors and synchronicity. Synchronicity is the way Source acts directly upon the universe, upon creation. Synchronicity is how information gets to individuals that can do something about it, to actors that can and will make a difference and choose to be involved. How did the initial balance get tipped? Now, that is a good question, one that I don't have the answer to, one that everybody is still sort of scratching their head wondering, okay, how did this happen? We don't know. We may never know. But we're going to do our best to fix the balance all the same.
Tanaath, this is Greg Trombley. He's one of the members of our Universal Voice.
Hi, Tanaath.
Hi.
Just a couple. Hi there. Thank you for a very enlightening, informative session and evening tonight. It's been very interesting and exciting. Couple few questions. Reptoid shape-shifting, is that real or fictional?
Okay. First of all, shape-shifting is, in a general sense, shape-shifting is real. Obviously, physically, I'm very human, and I stub my toe just like everybody else, and I'm kind of stuck in the body I'm stuck in. But I am a shapeshifter up there. I'm able to walk through walls up there. I am able to change my shape into, if I want to turn myself into a large pretzel, I can. But I suspect you're talking about all these videos where they claim to catch somebody shapeshifting to reptilian form on camera. Am I correct?
Yes, you are, and with the queen
like
and all
queen.
that sort of thing.
What you're seeing with that, yes. What you're seeing with that, okay. Yes, they are limited to a specific caste. They color code, the Draco color code for some odd reason. Blue scales are the ones who shapeshift. They are not the ones who are mostly up. However, what we have in the case of the shape-shifting videos, in a lot of cases it's just bad camera capturing, a digital breakdown of the signal or whatnot, pixelation. In a lot of cases we can dismiss it as purely mundane video breakup and not an actual reptilian at all. Now, that said, there are some cases where you do see things on camera that just don't make sense and can't be explained as pixelation or anything like that. In those cases, what you're seeing is generally not a shapeshift, but is a breakdown in the holographic matrix that being is projecting. Now, we have a couple different situations. We have humans who were born human and then subsequently possessed or taken over by a reptoid soul. That human may still be inside, or that human may be somewhere else, but the body is being walked around like a giant puppet by a lizard. And sometimes the fourth dimensional or fifth dimensional presence of that reptoid leaks through and breaks through the holographic reality that we live in and is captured by devices. Not shape-shifting, just a glitch in the matrix.
Okay.
Other times you have people who are maybe genetically reptoid, again, having the same thing. Maybe they are, all but reptoid in form, but they're running around here with mostly reptoid genes and, mostly reptoid bodies, but are basically wearing an illusion of humanity, not a shapeshift, an illusion of humanity, and that illusion shifts or slips.
All right. And then as a follow-up on that, for example, there was a woman who, her name, I don't know if it's real or not, but she went by the name Arizona Wilder, and she had talked about, she was a part of the Illuminati at one point, was a MK Ultra victim as well. but was a mother goddess and had talked at one point about being in Luciferian types of ceremonies with reptilian, with people, well-known people who shape-shifted when they got the smell of blood, human blood, and were part of, she was supposedly part of human sacrifices in which the blood was then drained from the victim because of, creating the terror and the adrenal gland rush and all that sort of thing, that these people would...
Some things are possible. Again, what we call shape-shifting may not, in fact, be a true form change. Again, it's a loss of control over the illusion in that case.
Okay. That makes sense.
Not an actual shape-shift.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, Arizona Wilder as a source is a pretty problematic entity, but that doesn't mean that everything she said is bullshit. Just operate on your discretion and your discernment.
Thank you. And another quick question is: we've heard in the past that many of the deep underground military bases throughout the U.S. and the world have been destroyed now underground by the good guys. Is that true, or is that fiction?
To the best of my knowledge, most have been put out of commission. Now, that doesn't mean that Kyla might have missed. But when we get reports of it, I usually say, "Hey, Kyla, we need to take another look over here," and he does. So.
And then the follow-up on that, and I apologize if it's a repeat. Dulce, has Dulce been taken out, or is it still operating? And if it's still operating, without giving away any confidential information, is there hopefully a plan in the future to remove that?
If it's still in operation, it will be shut down and removed. To the best of, I believe Dulce was taken care of. However, it's I'm of the opinion that until you get real world content, shall we say, it's hard to say 100% whether it is or isn't there or not anymore, because I can't get real world confirmation of it. Obviously, nobody in the powers that were are interested in giving a straight story about Dulce up to including the fact that it existed at all. But I do know that the Libercists have made an effort with it.
Fantastic. Thank you. I appreciate that. And then another quick question. Our governments currently have the ability to invade our brains through HAARP, microwaves, and other types of methodologies that they can use to plant ideas in our brains. In the future, will that be shut down as well? Because
definitely, the mind control apparatus has got to go. And you can also resist those things. Unfortunately, nobody teaches you how to shield in school, largely because nobody wants you even thinking any of this is real. I'll tell you guys a little bit, and I know this is going way into overtime, but I think it's important for people to understand. Shielding yourself. There's two kinds of shields that I want to discuss. The first is sort of perimeter shielding around your area. The second is personal shielding on you. Now, in order to do this, you sort of already have to buy into the notion that telepathy exists and you have some kind of ability that's involved in the five sense reality. But if you're worried about having the government beaming stuff into your head or trying to take over your thoughts, it's worth giving this a try. First, you're going to ground and center. Now, to center, I have on my website, www.silverlegion.org, in my FAQ file, I have a little bit of instruction on how to center and ground. So I would refer people to that. When you are grounded and centered, visualize a glowing net of light around your property in all directions. I personally use an inverse fractal that gets smaller and smaller to infinite points, which basically provides 100% coverage at any scale, because that's how a fractal works. When you put this into place, Imagine that it is able to take in anything hostile and turn that into energy to fuel itself. And imagine it tying into the Earth's energy field in a nice little knot so that it will continue to have power and never be overloaded and drained. When it gets too much, it gives back to Mother Earth, much like you ground yourself. And that visualization of tying the little knot of energy is what seals it, and then just let it go in your mind and, every now and then come back to it and reinforce it a bit. That is your perimeter shield. And this will help keep out hostile entities, and this will hopefully help keep out, some of the things that they're trying to do with machinery to you. Now, shielding yourself telepathically. I've talked about using the public and private parts of your mind. The first part of shielding yourself, do your thinking in the private part instead of the public part. Now, how to explain the difference is very, very difficult when you are not used to telepathy. It's like trying to explain the difference between royal blue and sky blue to somebody who can't see blue. It's very difficult to do. But make an effort to do your thinking in the private part instead of the public part. That'll automatically cut down on anyone picking up on your thoughts. And it's a lot harder to beam stuff into the private part of your mind. That stuff usually goes into the public. The next thing you want to do is also shield yourself, and this shields off your mind. And the same way that you visualized a shield around your home or around your room or around your yard or whatever, visualize the same sort of thing around yourself. You can make it look like whatever you want. You can make it look like a rubber so that things bounce off. You can make it look like metal so that, things reflect off. You can make it look like brick walls so they just go and don't go any farther. Whatever imagery works to you, including multiple layers, just make sure you specify in your intent that it's shutting out anything not you or anything trying to insert into you, and think of it as impenetrable. Your ability to believe your own effectiveness is key in this. And do this, tie it into the ground so that it's not calling on your personal energy. Because if you get hit and you want to be able to keep it up when you're sleeping, for instance. If it's automated, if it's tied in, then it'll keep up whether you're consciously maintaining it or not. Use this kind of shielding. Use the tie-off technique to make it permanent. And that's how you shield yourself. Make your mind impenetrable. Visualize it as impenetrable. Believe it to be impenetrable. Do your private thinking inside and, listen to music, watch TV, whatever. Do that on the outside in the public part. Take things a layer or two inward. And if you sense something outside of yourself trying to get in on you, to tell you something, to take something from your mind, one thing that really, really works is I use children's music, stuff like The Song That Never Ends. It gets rid of things quickly. Nobody really wants to hear Sherry Lewis and Lambert or whatever its name was. Or Barney,
Uh-huh.
There's ways that you can make yourself resistant to this. And yes, despite the fact that it is generated by machines, it does not mean that you are unable to resist it. You might be unable to stop a bullet with your mind, but you sure as heck can stop a bad thought.
Thank you. And then a couple quick more real fast. Is Venus inhabited? Because you were talking earlier about some of the different locales where.
Right. Venus is inhabited. Venus? I don't know anything about the population.
Okay. The only reason I asked is no, that's all right, because I was just trying to verify. There was a gentleman in the 1950s who supposedly came from Venus and worked with the U.S. government for a while. And then next question, Agartha, is there any kind of war that has been or currently is going on underground between the good ETs and the bad ETs?
Yeah, things are a little mixed up. You see, there were some people passing themselves off as good guys, not just to humans, but, you know, saying to the Federation and stuff, hey, yeah, we're on your side and we're working for you guys, and found to be actually not. And so, yeah, there's a little turmoil going on with stuff like that right now. I don't know the full details on the situation. I would just, you know, it's caveat emptor whenever you're dealing with somebody from the underneath the ground. Most of them aren't nice.
No problem. I fully understand. And then, question: can we, talking about full disclosure now, can we as a humanity expect to receive full disclosure, hopefully this coming year, this year that we're in? And when I say full disclosure, I'm talking not only about the UFO ET questions, but also about the Anunnaki, the blood types, the bloodlines, the inner Earth, and then most importantly, the origins of the human species.
I imagine that would depend.
Become incorporated within that full disclosure.
I imagine that would depend on two things. It would depend on one thing, if we humans actually get our act together and disclose, and make this knowledge publicly available. If we overthrow the powers that were and free up the information system and are able to get reliable information to people, terrestrially ourselves here, us human beings here on Earth, then that's one way to do that. In tandem with that, I know the Federation does want to become more physically involved on the planet with their kids here. You guys, us. So, yeah, they want to. Whether it'll happen this year, I don't know. None of this is, everybody's like, well, is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? The future is not written. We're making it now. Despite the fact that prophecies exist, a lot of those prophecies were planted using time travelers, for one. Or, as in the case of the Anunnaki, guys who said, I'll be back, and then, never really got around to it. Or were prevented, or whatever, Take the stuff with a grain of salt. It's not some divine destiny that has to occur in an exact specific way. It's more like themes. And yeah, there are some things that are that you're not going to be able to stop, like transition, for instance. I mean, it's like a tide. You can try all you want. You're not going to stop the tide. It's a natural process. That
right.
kind of thing. It's not triggered by a person or a thing or an entity or a group or an organization. It's a natural process. It's going to happen. There are other things that are, that were promised at some point. Maybe they were promised by bad guys. Maybe they were promised by good guys. Again, they're promises. Whoever made them is going to do their best to make sure that happens. But anything could happen. It's up to us. We are writing our future now. Be an active participant in this. I would recommend to people, this is your life, your future. Be an active participant in it. Don't be a slave to prophecy or the notion of how things are destined to be, because you are the one who is going to decide it. And some of those things that have been promised as prophecy and destiny are really not nice.
Exactly. And then along those same lines, because the control really is ours, and we need to, as a group of people, one humanity, need to keep trying to enlighten and awaken, if you will, the sheeple. We're obviously, most of us that see the big picture and understand, the history of how where we came from and how we got to where we're at, are certainly in the minority, in the vast minority, maybe 1% of the population. And it's going to take a much higher percentage to achieve the things that you're talking about. My question is that in order to get to where we got to, there was influence obviously from what I would call bad ETs. Thank goodness the good ETs are there to help prevent nuclear holocaust, if you will, and side with us. Are they willing to act proactively when the time comes with us, or have they, as has been touted, and I don't know if this is coming from the light sources, when I say light, the Light Federation group, are they willing to step aside with us and help us, or have they taken a neutral approach?
The nature of the relationship is, yes, they want to be involved. They don't want to do for us or to us. They want to be involved as mentors and teachers and partners. The ultimate decision must lie with humans on Earth. It is our future, our sovereignty, our lives that we're discussing. Somebody else coming in and telling you, hey, you do this. That's not appropriate. The positive ETs want to be involved. They want to be involved as family members, much like, you might have an uncle or an aunt who likes to be involved in your life and give you good advice and stuff, but isn't trying to run your life. That's what they want to do. And they want to be able to open up the planet, for lack of a better term, to discourse and community outside of the planet without the community on Earth into a specific pattern or into a specific configuration.
It's beautiful.
And yes, they do. Huh?
No, go ahead and finish. Then I'll
Yeah, they do want to be more actively involved. Right now, it is a matter of being unable to, not unwilling, unable. There's a big difference.
Well,
and there's also
amazing.
A lot of discussion on how to do this without accidentally or inadvertently damaging human sovereignty on Earth, right? It's tricky. How do you do this? It's a big question and one that gets asked up there. How do you do this safely? How do you do this without accidentally hurting somebody? How do you do this without accidentally forcing Terrans into a pattern that might not be right for them, One of the things they want to do is come among us as individuals, get to know us, get to work with us, teach where they can, mentor where they can, help with the dissemination of already existing Terran tech that has been suppressed. We have replicators on this planet. We have things that can heal any physical ailment within minutes. We have faster than light travel. We have energy generation. They call it free energy, but it does come from somewhere. It comes from basically the cosmos as a whole, the energetic field behind existence itself. That is emissionless, pollutionless, and does not damage Terra. We have all kinds of tech. We humans on this planet have developed all kinds of things that have been suppressed. And one of the things that ET wants to do before anything like handing over their own tech is make sure that these human-developed, Terran-developed techs are disseminated so people can make a use of them and find out what's better. Typically, everybody up there's got their own way of doing things. The Androni have one version of faster-than-light modality. The Silver Legion has another. The Tau Cetians have a third. Everybody has their own solutions. Now, after they arrive at a solution, usually the other guys come along and say, oh, yeah, here's how we do it. And then they share. But prior to that, it's anticipated and desired that people develop their own solutions, because every time somebody comes up with a new solution, a new unique solution, it's yet another tool in the great big toolbox on how to do things.
And that's interesting. And speaking of solutions, my last question for you is, and thank you, Tanaath. My last question is, for those of us who understand the big picture and what's at stake, and see the future as being something that, as you just described a moment ago, as something that is very beautiful, very special, especially when you start bringing in free energy and the molecular fabricators that you're talking about, and remove greed and money out of the system. The whole thing can change for for the better. My question is, for us that understand, how can we help and work with yourself and your group the Silver Legion to to help bring about what is beneficial for all of us? How can we help you?
Well, this is a very difficult question to answer with specific instructions. I don't like it when people ask me, "Oh, tell me what to do," because I don't know what their abilities are. I don't know where their capacities are. I don't know where their interests are. I don't know what their resource level is. I don't know what they are and are not willing to commit. When it comes to things like that, I can't tell you what to do. What I can tell you is, take stock of who you are and what you like to do, your skills, your capacities, your trainings, the things you enjoy, and try to find a way in which those things can contribute. Now, I'm connected with non-physical groups. I'm connected with ETs and EDs and spirit entities, and that's how I can contribute. I can contribute by being a loquacious speaker who can generally get a point across. I can contribute by writing things in a way that is coherent and easy to understand. I can come on the radio and talk. That's one of my contributions. I can, in a more material sense or non-material, and as the case may be, work as a liaison with the Galactic Federation of Planets and with Silver Legion. I can coordinate there. At some point, I'm hoping to be able to coordinate with Terrans on the ground as an official member of the Silver Legion here, and coordinate and liaison with Terrans here as on an official, but hopefully not under our current governmental structure basis. I don't know what is it your interests are. Where do you lie? It sounds like you're involved in the universal voice. In this, you are contributing. You are being part of the solution.
Thank you. Yeah. Right now, I personally am working to certainly through not only universal voice and other things to try to awaken fellow. I live in America, so trying to awaken fellow Americans and fellow humans across the world to where we're at, how we got to where we're at, and more importantly, where we can go. We're at a crossroads. So what I'm personally trying to do is to help awaken as many as possible so that we can have the masses. Obviously, 1% controls the 99%, and the more of the 99% that can be awakened, the more powerful. We have the 99% have the ultimate power to affect the kind of change that you're talking about, the kind of change that we see as well.
Wake up, sleeping giant.
Yeah, exactly.
It's only
exactly.
sheeple while a giant sleeps. Once that giant comes awake, there will be nothing holding down humanity on this planet.
Exactly.
What is the function of chemtrails, and is this going to stop? We know that the ETs helped with the HARP and the HARP function, get the HARP going on. Are they pursuing the same with chemtrails?
Yeah, we're definitely trying to do something. As to what its functions are, it's multifunctional. We believe it is with the efforts to keep us out somehow. The exact nature of this is as yet undiscovered, but we know it's a factor. We also know that it is a factor in killing the soil and killing plants and animals in order to control the population, and in order to, for financial gain on some corporations and individuals, through the production and sale of genetically modified organisms that are resistant to the poison. We also know that it is a part of their population control agenda. So, yeah, the chemtrails are good. Anything they might have said about geoengineering in terms of being a good thing with the chemtrails, it's a darn lie. As to what we can do about them, I would say, if you know somebody who's a pilot, if you are aware of somebody who's doing this, let them know that they're not helping. Some people are doing it because their families are endangered. Some people are doing it because they need a job by any means, and they just got to feed themselves and their family. Some people are doing it because they've been told that they're helping combat global warming or whatnot. Some people are doing it because they really, really hate other people and they're really misanthropic and think that they're killing off the useless bottom feeders. Assess on an individual level what's going on and use a persuasive solution based on that.
Mhm. Yep.
We'll try to do what we can.
Yeah, we're going to have to bring you back, Tanaath. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it because we got a lot of great questions that we didn't get answered tonight. So we're definitely going to have to bring you back, and we'll work on that. And I'll speak to you about that after the program on when you might be available again. In the meantime, Grammy J, your friend and mine, is going to ask you a couple of quick rapid-fire questions. Grammy, you're with us?
Yes. Are you ready for me, Kath?
I'm ready.
I love you, horny. We have some member questions, rapid fire. Are there bases on Mars? And did Obama and others like Andrew Basiago and William Stillings go there?
Yes, there are or were bases on Mars. I don't believe that Mars is currently I don't believe there are any actual bases on Mars right now that are in functionality, but I could be wrong on that. As for Obama and Andrew Basiago, I don't know on that point.
Okay, next question. This person says, I am new to understanding ascension. Can you tell me if I will remain mother to my 2 children after ascension? They are ages 9 and 2, and I feel this is the only part of ascension that scares me. Thank you.
Your relations with your families, your animals, your loved ones are going to remain.
Okay, next question.
You don't need to worry about. You're not going to lose anyone.
Next question. There was an ancient city found in southern Africa that was reported to be around 400,000 years old. This ancient city was about 10,000 square miles long. Who were these people, and where did they go?
There were a number of past civilizations on planet Earth. I'm not the expert on former civilizations previous to Atlantis and about 26 ago. A good resource is actually a site called, I can't even pronounce this, Bibliotheca Pleiades or something like that, where a number of different authors have written articles on ancient civilizations on Earth that are not discussed.
Okay, and the last quick question for you.
The mainstream literature.
And the last quick question from one of our members. So, in order to tune into these life forms, we need to open up our pineal gland and raise our vibrations?
That helps. Opening up your pineal is part practice and part detoxification. You don't need to let anything into yourself. You never, ever, ever need to let anything or anyone into yourself. But yes, you'll be able to become, just like you don't need me jamming my mouth down your ear to hear me.
And this is why
you'll be able to become aware.
Is a possession, correct?
Yes, it is. Because there's an element of loss of control or entry into that individual.
Thank you so much for your time, Kath. We all love you very much.
Thank you.
Very much so. Just a couple more quick questions, if I can squeeze them in, Kath. A comment that Dolores Cannon does not claim she does not channel. She does deep hypnosis. Is there a difference?
I would be even less trustworthy of deep hypnosis because it is a loss of conscious control over the person. You can insert things via hypnosis, and they're not necessarily, it can serve the interest of the hypnotist or whoever's backing the hypnotist. That doesn't necessarily make it better. Sorry.
In fact, it in likelihood makes it worse, right?
Yeah, because you've got complete loss of conscious control that way.
Okay. Are you familiar with thank you for the good work you do. Are you familiar with a higher group called Adonis who wants to spread oneness?
Oh boy, that sounds slightly perverted. No, I'm not familiar. Look at the message. The idea of oneness is very open to interpretation. When I was discussing the fractalic nature of Source and how Source comprises of Source as part of that, that's oneness. That's oneness without requiring you give over your belief to anything.
Okay. Okay.
Caveat
Drake,
emptor, look at the actual message.
Okay, I'm sorry, but we're very, very close to being out of time. Drake, would you like to give a closing remark?
Yeah, this has been most enlightening and a whole lot of fun. We definitely got to do this again.
Yeah.
And on that, I'm gonna say my usual: get her done.
Okay.
Get her done, indeed.
And you, Todd?
Get her done. Yep, agree with Drake's sentiment on that. Huh?
Okay. Get her done is your comment as well, huh? I would definitely
yeah, I'll be back.
Okay, I'm going to retain the question that we were unable to ask tonight that we missed for the next broadcast.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm not the content generator that Drake is, but I wouldn't mind coming back on the show on a semi-regular basis.
Okay.
This was a bit of a spur-of-the-moment thing for me, but I'm glad to have come.
Okay.
Cool.
Well,
another concert.
As of right now, we do not have anything for next Wednesday, so tentatively, if you could possibly consider next Wednesday, and that way we have.
I'll consider it. I'll look at my personal situation. There's a little matter of me changing residences.
Oh, whoops. Okay.
If I have internet.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, honey. Well, thank you so very much. As always, Tanaath, it has been our deep pleasure to have you with us, and we are filled with gratitude for your time and all that the Silver Legion and all of the good people that you work with are doing on behalf of humanity. And it's been our honor to have you with us tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Grammy, would you like to say a quick closing?
Thank you. I'm going to say what I always say. May the Great Spirit bless each and every one of you and our planet and beyond.
Thank you very much, Grammy. And thank you, Greg, for being with us as well tonight. I'm sorry we won't have any more time for closing remarks. But until next time, this is the Universal Voice, forward moving and focused on freedom. Thank you for joining us. And until next time, be good to one another.